For a parent who loves a child and is raising them in society today, they are probably going to be really concerned about how that child will be treated if they are trans. So
Yeah,
in terms
safety.
of the safety, in terms of taking action, there is a process and they are probably going to slow roll through the process. Not to mention, then there is the medical care element. If a parent were to take their child, which again, they're not going to do, and is like, put my 5-year-old on testosterone, no parent, I mean, no doctor is going to do that,
No.
right? There's
no
checks
parent's
and
going to do
balances.
it. No doctor's going to do it.
Exactly.
I think the medical care really is going to be family therapy and finding community, because this is very much medical care and part of a health plan for a kid. And for gender affirming care, part of that is finding community for that kid where they are going to be safe, where they might have other kids that feel similar, other parents that feel similar. So I can't tell you how many parents have contacted me and said, my kid's in high school, they're struggling, they identify as a trans man, and is it possible that I could connect them with you? I'm like, absolutely. Those people are in the middle of Iowa. They don't have a lot of community that understand or feel like they do. So part of that plan is also finding community. So being alone and lonely can become a medical condition that becomes life-threatening. I absolutely think that, it's probably family therapy and finding community and affirming that what your child is saying is real.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Sam Dever Podcast, episode 134. In this episode, I speak with Rose Donahue and Ian Harvie. Rose is an actor, producer, and writer, and Ian is a comic actor and director. This was an incredible conversation. I can't wait for you to check it out. To watch this episode, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/@thesamdeverpodcast. To listen to this podcast, be sure to follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Here's my conversation with Rose and Ian. Well, Rose Donahue, Ian Harvie, welcome to the Sam Dever Podcast.
Woo!
Yeah,
Excited to be here.
Yeah.
This is awesome. This came together pretty quickly, really.
I mean, we got it all organized in under a week, I think.
It's because you're a producer.
That helps.
It is true.
It
is true.
helps. It helps. You're also very organized.
Yeah, we all are. I think everyone in
Right.
this room is pretty. It's funny. I have to give you guys.
Rose is a doer. There is not like, if you ask Rose, it is done that moment. Like I remember asking you for like a document, and before I could finish the text, it was replied to me with the document. So
Oh, she's one of those.
Yeah.
Yes. I take that as a massive compliment.
Yeah, it's
thank you.
fantastic.
I love how important is that, especially in LA, like doers. Like, because this is a town where there's a lot of talking that happens.
A lot of dreamers. And I love a dream.
Mhm.
Love to follow a dream. But in terms of being in the real world, you got to follow through.
Yeah, LA is not for dreamers, it's for doers.
It's for doers, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, I'm in recovery 32 years, and I had a friend say this to me a long time ago. They're like, look, recovery is not for the people who need it or want it. It's for the people who would do it. So it was one of those things that was like, that applies to everything, really. It's like, yeah, you might need, that job, you might need, it's like, I just think that it's like, this is not for the faint at heart, anyway. Yeah, it's for people like Rose who are like, or anybody who just says, who says I can't do that? And you just go and do it. You prepare and you do it.
That's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, like I don't care what anyone else says. I'm not going to be stopped, I think is the attitude.
I felt that.
I will not be stopped. I love it. I love it.
You guys are hyping me up.
Fantastic. Yes.
I'm getting pumped. What are we 2 minutes in? Like, jeez.
Yeah.
Already, this is the whole 2 minutes is a clip.
Yeah.
Wow.
You have to be a force. Yeah. You can't, I love it. Yeah. Fantastic.
And you are too? You are as well? It's constant.
Eric here, he is as well.
I want to know who your role model was for that, because for me, it's my mom. I remember when in the 70s, we moved into a new house and it had this wood paneling on the wall that my mother hated. And she's like, I think I'm just going to wallpaper over it. My father goes, you can't wallpaper over paneling. And that afternoon, she had wallpapered over the paneling. It was done. She was like, oh, you think I can't? Well, watch me. And it was done that afternoon. So there's something in, like, somebody showed you that somewhere that you were, because I think if no one shows you that in some sort of fashion, then you don't believe that it's possible. So who was yours?
My mom as well, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think my dad is definitely like the dreaming side of my parental units. And then my mom is very much a doer. And I mean, she worked so hard. She worked multiple jobs through high school for me, and to like help me get through college and stuff. And she, yeah, is a force. She she wanted my brother and I to have a good education. We grew up in Philadelphia, which doesn't have the strongest public school system, which I would love for that to be fixed. But at the time, it was what it was. And so she started a school. Neither of us ended up attending the school, but she started a school with a bunch of other moms.
And people probably said to her, well, you can't do that. She's like, watch me.
Watch me. And now the school is still is thriving. It's very much in business. It's thriving. It's a charter school that focuses on environmental education in addition to like tying in environmental education across the spectrum and of academics. And yeah, she like went to their graduation. She like met someone on the train who had the Greenwood Charter School sweatshirt on, and she was like, I founded that school. And like the parents started crying and they were like, we had such a hard time finding the right school for our kid.
It's so amazing.
Yeah. So I'm same mom. Mom is a big educator. Yeah.
You're out here doing it. Who was your person?
Oh boy. I'm probably just, so I'm from Illinois. So I always tell the story. Like I used to be in my room on this 13-inch TV watching MTV Cribs.
Yes.
It'd be snowing outside and I'd see all the palm trees. I'm like, I want to go there, wherever that's at. So really, I'm going to have to credit just a lot of Hollywood type people that I watched growing up.
The inspo.
Yeah, that was the inspiration. And that comes off kind of shallow when in retrospect. It's like, oh, I wanted to go to LA and be famous movies. But it got me here.
You also do stunts or have a history of stunt work.
No, I don't do stunts.
Oh,
but
what was I thinking?
Podcasting, acting. I've done music stuff in the past. Just anything arts, entertainment.
Okay, maybe Angel was
Angel.
through
Angel does like
that
the
or
fight
something. He does the
choreography.
fight
And shout out
choreo.
to Angel Mendoza.
Woo, woo.
He's the one that connected us.
He did.
But yeah, that's actually a phenomenal question. I've never really sat and thought about that.
Well,
Like,
before MTV Cribs, there had to be somebody that showed you that something was possible that you didn't know that was possible.
You know what? This is crazy. Yeah, I have nothing to do with arts and entertainment. I had a shout out to Brett. He was I was really big into basketball, and he had played at a pretty high level and everything, and came back. He's from the same town I was, and he took me under his wing, showed me the weight room, started training me, and he showed me like, hey, you can get better, you can do these things, you can play at a higher level.
Yeah.
And so I have to credit Brett, and that led me on a path to like, well, hey, if you can do that, then you can do this. So, wow, it's gone deep quick.
You know what? I mean, I think that is a form of love and showing somebody that kind of representation is a form of love to the people around you. And it is a gift that we also then get to carry on and show others. And that, my partner and I, we have nieces and nephews, and, even my mom to this day, who's 85, she'll be 86 this summer. She's like, I don't know how you do what you do. I'm like, from you. I'm like, and now I am showing others, that like, you gave me this gift and I am here to impart that to other people if they want to receive it. Like, who says, when Rose contacted me, I'd met Rose in Las Vegas, and I don't know, was it 10 years ago?
It was 2016.
Yeah. So 9 years ago. And we shot this film,
2023, actually, end of the year.
So, and, I had never directed. And a lot of people, and their instinct or their habit or routine or their training would say, well, I can't direct. I've never directed. Like, why would this person think that I could direct, or why, like, and you would talk yourself out of this opportunity. It had been on my mind. I wanted to know how to do it. I knew I couldn't do it on a large scale at first. But I definitely knew that it was something that I would like to experience and to learn. And this email went to me and my manager, and from Rose saying, I'm interested in talking to you about potentially, directing this short. Here's the script. And I never once said to myself, never once, because of that representation and that love that I received and encouragement by her example, did I say to myself, oh, I can't do this. Not once.
Good.
Not once. And so, and I think about the same thing with my transness. Like, not once did I think I can't be a man. Like, I thought, it was the same sort of representation of like, who the F says you can't? Like, don't let anybody tell you can't transition or direct or act or be creative in some way that you have been hungering to be. And so I had this opportunity that came from Rose, and she said, I'll help you. And that's all I needed to hear in order for me to I was already hooked on the idea. I read the script. I loved the script, and the script really moved me in a way that, you saw the film. So I don't want to, we can talk about it, right?
I don't mind spoilers.
Yeah. What's the name of the film?
It's called Frosting. It's on the festival circuit now. It's not available to view online at this time, but it will be one day.
But when you see the film, when everybody listening sees the film, so this will make sense. There's so many stories out there about trans people, other people being afraid of trans people and it being a transphobic story. This is not one of those stories. This, to me, what struck me about it was it is family being, and this is a hyper, compact, statement about what this film is partially about, but it is about someone in the family being afraid for someone else's safety, not of this trans person, but for them. And I think so much of families' rooted fear about another family member being trans is really for their safety. And I'll tell you, my mother, before I transitioned, said a lot of horrific stuff to me. I know she didn't mean it, but I think she was trying to scare me out of transitioning because she's only heard bad things about what happened to trans people. She was like, are you sure? How do you know? How can you be certain? I'm like, because you and I feuded when I was 2 years old about girl clothes, and we have ever since. This was something that was in me at such an early age. And I think once my mother could recall and reconcile all of that stuff and also reconcile. So this, anyway, but back to the story, it struck me that this, what seems like at first glance and a sort of a misdirect in the beginning, that Holly, the main character, is queer, but also being transphobic about their cousin. And it is not the case. It's much more layered than that. And Holly has had her own experience that has led her to this fear for her cousin. And so that struck me as a different take on a lot of, trans stories that we've heard. And so when she asked, I think when you asked me, there was maybe somebody else also that you were talking to. And I literally put the script in a player, not in Line Learner, but something similar, and just listened to it on a loop as I was going to work, and just absorbed every page and every word, and became really obsessed with it and wanted to do it. So she gave me a chance. She said, I'll help you, and supplied me with so much material of helping me with even things that words I'm going to need, shot list, and, things that I'm going to need to know on set, words, and, things that I'm going to need to familiarize myself with, and not just bring my viewpoint, but some lingo and some skills and some preparation. So thank you.
thank you for joining the team. And I don't know, I guess I've never actually told this to you. I was dying for you to say yes to directing. I didn't think you would. I wasn't sure you would. Because I had emailed once, and then I gotta say, always send a follow-up. I hadn't heard back, no shade at all. You're a busy person. But I followed up and then got a response that about you being interested. And I was like, thank you for the follow-up. Like, it never hurts to ask again, you know? And then we had our Zoom conversation, and you said yes to doing it. And I was just like so beyond stoked. And I had zero doubts about your ability to direct because of your acting experience. Like, I really trusted that you knew what the experience was like to be on camera and to be able to convey or like have conversations with the actors about they can best do their performances. So I like really felt strong about that. And then technical stuff can be learned. And again, we had our amazing DP Ed on board. So for Ian and me and Ed to just collaborate, you know, Ed and I met up for a little bit of previs, just taking some shots in the apartment where we were filming ahead of time so that we could then send them to Ian so that he can get more of an idea of the space. And anyway, I was beyond stoked when you said that you would direct.
Well, and it's going to be a love fest from here on out. You know, that's, I mean, Rose,
I love your two's energy.
Rose was definitely like hands-on everything. Everything was like, I mean, and constantly feeding me information. And like, meanwhile, I was watching like Masterpiece, like Ron Howard's Masterpiece on directing. You know, every sort of bit of information that you were sending me about, you know, angles and what this is called and what this, even though some of them didn't apply because we were filming in a space very much like this, and it's, you know, this is a limited, ultra low budget, and you know, we had very little time, and just all of it was we were not going to be doing, you know, it wasn't action. It was, you know, it was.
We didn't have a crane.
There was no, no crane.
I don't think we even had a dolly.
Yeah, none of that.
None of that.
So, but it's super helpful. I still have so much more to learn, but this experience though, and someone else also having that same vibe of like, yeah, you can do this, you know, like the technical stuff you can learn, like have someone else say that just added into the like, oh yeah, I can do this. We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
It's like that extra little push or nudge.
Yeah,
totally.
Yeah.
I feel like my general vibe is like things are figure outable.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And as a trandy man, I do like tons of like handyman projects. I have like probably 10 regular friends that call me for stuff, and I do stuff for them all the time. And I'm always having to MacGyver shit. And if you don't know what that means, like, do you know what I'm talking about? Okay. It's like, it was a TV show. The guy
I know
could
MacGyver.
do anything. Oh yeah.
Love MacGyver.
So like, I mean, I just definitely like, yeah, it was that vibe of like, yeah, like there's nothing we can't do. We'll figure it out. Figure outable.
Yes.
Is that what you said?
Yeah.
It's a great word.
Thank you.
It's all figure outable.
And I love that. And I also like have always said, like, instead of saying like why this can't work, it's no, how can we make this work? Like, how can you work with what you got?
Totally.
It goes back to the whole doer thing. And that's to me, doers, like, all right, we're going to figure out how to do this. We don't know how, but it's figure outable.
Yeah, I was at a talk back after a theater show, and the director was saying there are no problems in theater. There are only challenges. And I think that applies to film as well, and basically everything in life.
But even that's fun. You know what? I love when someone says to me, I don't know how to do blah, 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 and I have to think of a way. That's the fun part. That's not even the challenge. I'm like, all right, well, let's figure this out. Like, yeah, this is going to be cool. Like, someone just asked me, this is the most ridiculous example, but someone has windows in their shower that the shower actually hits the wooden frame windows. And they're like, I have to have these ugly rubber curtains over them. What can I do to make it so that I have looked everywhere and for a solution to this, because it's old apartments and things like that people have that have these sort of wonky, weird things. Well, anyway, I went on, those like, they're like, you see and you go into a sports restaurant and there's like a jersey in a clear box.
Yeah.
Like I looked up those clear boxes and found ones that are the size of his window and put them on hinges and put them over his window. Like that's kind of the weird stuff. They're like, oh, give me anything and I will figure it out. That's so stupid.
You're a good person to know.
But like, just one of those things that like, I don't want, and I will not sleep. I will dream of it. I will, in my sleep, I will be thinking of solutions for things. So I know you're the same too.
Yeah.
You lay awake.
Yeah. Sometimes it's not great, but
But
it gets done though,
but it
right?
gets done. It does. And I will actually, on that note, part of hiring such a great crew like Ian and Ed, who I mentioned, our AD Casey, was so that I could sleep more, because it's hard to write a script and produce it and act in it. And when I first wrote it, I was like, this could be the microest of micro budgets and I'll just direct it too. But it kind of grew as I got feedback, and it was invaluable to bring on other people who I knew would be good at what they do and cheerful and positive, just so that it was like slightly less stressful for me and I could focus on the job of acting. So I know we were talking about the film and how great the crew was. And I just, as a producer, actor, I would recommend it to anyone who is also a producer, actor. Find ways to get a little bit of the stress off your plate. Because you were saying, like, I touched everything, and that's still true, but at least I knew that I didn't have to order the lunches.
Yeah.
You did a great job acting.
Thank you. That means a lot.
I know if the Holly character pokes you, then you can. I definitely, it's like one of those moments. Like I've shown it to friends, and they're like, "Ooh, Holly, man, she really, she is a lot." And I'm like, that means she did her job really well. Yeah, you did your job well.
That means a lot, because it says, having written it, I did feel very close to it, obviously, and it was hard to, in a way, to let it go. I was incredibly excited Ian came on board, and relieved, because I felt like I could trust him with it. But being an actor, you're always your own worst critic. So it's.
Well, it reminds me, one time in acting class, one of our teachers told us about Clint Eastwood. I can't remember what movie it was, because he's famous for directing and acting and his stuff. And he was, it's like the night before day one filming, something like that. And he was like, okay, I got everything done. We're ready for the next day. And then he stopped. He goes, oh, I haven't done my homework for the acting part. Because he was so focused on the directing, and then, had to do all that work.
Totally.
So to your point, like bring a team together, like you said, the importance of bringing a team, so you don't have to be stressing like that.
Absolutely.
And we were talking before, like the importance of why do the same people keep working with each other? Well, probably because it worked.
If you know that they do good work, you want to work with them again. And I do worry a little about, diversity and inclusion in Hollywood and people not getting opportunities. People say this is such a industry. And I don't love that, right? Like, I want there to be opportunities for people. But at the same time, when you're working in high stakes, high pressure, short timelines, you're going to call the people that you can trust and that will be supportive and nice and friendly through the process every time, because it's too much stress otherwise if you don't have confidence in your team.
I have a question for you. It's not related, but I've been obsessing about this for writers. You as a writer, this is for you you as the writer question. When did you know that you were ready to release it, to say, okay, I'm going to fundraise or save money and we are going to do this? When is that flip? When does that switch happen for you? You're like, okay, even if I'm not ready, it's happening. Like
That's a great question.
because I think that a lot of people sit on stuff for a long time and go, and go over it and over it and over it and over it. And at what point are you just sick of yourself? What's the switch for you? Do you know?
I can tell you about this specific script for sure. I did originally write it in 2020, so I did sit on it for a while. And again, when I first wrote it, it was only 2 characters instead of the 3, and it was very compact. And I was showing my reels in my acting class just to get feedback on them because I knew I needed to do some updates. And my acting teacher actually was like, "Are you in the union?" And I said, "No, not yet." And he was like, "You need to get in the union." And I was like, "Okay, I guess I'm going to produce a SAG film." And I had this script that I'd been sitting on, and it was the one that I definitely felt the closest to. Like I had other, working scripts. That one, it just felt like important to me. It felt like the most important one to actually produce. And so I took a few months. It was during the SAG strikes. I ran into Bridget and she gave me some feedback on the script. And then I was just like, I think I'm going to shoot it by the end of the year. And I did.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I guess I was kind of a little bit, it was my acting ambition that really like pushed me to make it. And then with the deadline in mind, it's like I kind of had to let go of it.
Yeah. So would you say, and some of what I'm gleaning from this is that it's not a spiritual awakening. It's a switch where you just say, I'm going to do this.
Literally a switch for me.
Yeah.
In this instance.
Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a phenomenal question because that actually, probably for all of us in this room, makes you think back to all those times. Yeah, what is that difference between idea? This is something I'm kind of play with. Like,
Yeah.
all right, we're doing this. That's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, look, even if it's like, I remember, I was about to go on stage once and I was opening for Margaret Cho and I had been on the road with her for years. And I said to her, I have this new bit and I'm really fucking scared to do it. And she said, we always would couch new jokes in between jokes that we knew that would work. But I had a bunch of new jokes. I was going to do this thing and I was just really scared. And I was like, oh, I don't know. She goes, well, that's fine. You just never create anything then. And I was like, oh, fuck. Like, that is true. At some point, you have to just release it. It doesn't have to be perfect. It might fall flat, but release it and learn from it and do the next thing or make it better, do it again, whatever. But at some point, you just have to flip that switch and get rid of it. Tell that joke, like eat it on stage, just eat a bag of dicks, if you have to, like just do it. And so, I was curious if like there was or if it was just like, no, I just have to get this off my plate.
Yep. It was a switch for me in that instance for sure. And I would say generally a lot of like life changes have kind of like pursuing acting was kind of a switch for me. I literally read an article in maybe my senior year of college and it was on Backstage or something. And the author was like, it's really not that hard if you just come out here and do the work. And I was like, well, I guess I'm just going to go out there and do the work.
Yeah.
So and here we are, for better or worse.
Back to the doers. I mean, everything goes back to the doing. Like,
yeah. Anybody out here who is envious of somebody else that is getting stuff, it's because they're doing stuff.
And they're doing a lot of stuff that hasn't worked first. And then finally something hits.
Yeah. Yeah.
That right there. Like,
it's a numbers game.
Yeah.
It's a numbers game.
Truly.
You got to keep, throwing.
Well, to both your points, because you learn by the doing. And I love what you said, like you got to get it out because not only are you going to figure stuff out, but you're clearing space in your mind. Like how many times, I'm guilty of this. I got this idea, and it's taking up this real estate. And maybe I got 75, 80%, but I'm getting 20% of my creativity clogged up because I won't release it. Because sometimes we do stuff and, oh, that's not really what I thought it was going to be.
Totally.
And that's actually good because I'm like, all right, I can kick that away.
Or tweak it.
Yeah, or tweak it. Like, yeah, exactly.
Totally.
Yeah.
100%.
So you guys met in Vegas in 2016?
Yeah.
Was that a project or you just randomly met or?
It was pretty random. I was working on a talk show at the time and I was doing a lot of campaign coverage. So Margaret Cho and Ian were in town for a show, but also did a
Get out the vote.
campaign surrogate get out the vote thing. So I did a quick interview with Margaret and, we like happened to take a picture together and I just so happened that I also had tickets to see that show that evening, their show that evening, which I didn't know I would meet them during the day. And then my girlfriend at the time also, we went to the show at night. And so I just always had a memory of Ian.
You were a
in particular.
casting agent.
Low key, yeah.
You were a casting
Low
person.
key, I was like
You're
casting.
just filing me away for yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So 2016, then you reached out in 2023.
Yep.
So I'm pointing that out because that's what a lot of this business can be too, is just relationships. And a lot of times we plant seeds, right? And may not be immediate, but then years down the road, you end up collabing and working with people.
Totally.
Yeah. I mean, I'm such a firm believer in that sort of consciousness of like, we all are meeting here for a reason. This is something, and that we will all keep a piece of each other with us. And, whether it be that we bump into each other for, and sit down and have, coffee somewhere because we happen to be in the same place, or we happen to be on set, or we happen to be at the same art show or concert or whatever it is, like I just believe in that connectivity, like firmly, and we may become family. But this is not 1 second of this is a mistake. So, and that, I do think that we all should be walking around going, wait, who are you to me? You're somebody to me. Who are you to me? Who are you to me? Let's figure maybe I'll see you down the road and I'll figure that out. I firmly believe that in every, aspect of life, friendships, love, family, art, work, all of it.
I think it's a really healthy mentality to have, especially in work. I think it's valuable in life 110%, and I have a similar life outlook. But with the work, especially being an actor, the numbers game of it, the hit and miss of it, and the trusting, okay, these 100 auditions weren't for me, and that's okay because the one that is will come. And you should tell the story about Curb Your Enthusiasm with the casting process.
Yeah. Well, so I had an audition for Curb. Gosh, I don't know how many years ago it was now. Probably 6 years ago, and maybe 5. And I went in and I did a great job with the casting agent and producers, and the director was in the room as well. And they called me back maybe a week later, different location, go in and to audition with Larry from Curb. And so we did some improv in front of basically the entire team. And I could have died just then happily because I made Larry laugh. I was super excited about it. That was a win. And I remember talking to my manager, and he just said, if you get an audition for a show like that everybody fucking wants to be on, he's like, it's like getting into for an actor, it's like getting into Harvard, 100 times, but you get a call back, it's like 1,000 times that. And that is also part of the work. Don't forget that that's part of the work, and that you imprinted on these people and they liked you enough to bring you back. And so it was down to me and another guy. The other guy got it. And at the time I was like, I really tried to have faith in the universe. Of course, you start to go, I got a call back. That was really fun. I made Larry laugh, fingers crossed. And then it didn't happen, which I definitely was very zen-like. I'm like, it's okay. It did. I was like a little bit achy, like, oh, I wish I coulda, but it's fine. Not a big deal. But fast forward 3 years later, I get a call, I audition, send it in on a Friday. I find out on the Monday that I got it. It was such a better role. I mean, it was such a phenomenal, I got to play Larry's ex-lover, before I had transitioned, and then I transitioned to have to come back and remind him who I am. And I'm also playing Bruce Springsteen's manager, and I'm improving with these greats. The primary cast in the room with the primary cast and fucking Bruce Springsteen. Like, I mean, that to me was just like, oh, this other audition, like, see, this is why. This is why that wasn't meant for you. This was how it was supposed to play out. So if you are like, look, I feel like that was incredibly lucky. What I'm so proud of myself about what I did on that day was that I didn't get so nervous that it took me out of myself, which is oftentimes what happens. You feel the stakes are so friggin' high that you get so scared that you can't be yourself. And really, I had to come and be myself. That's what I had to access the very depths of who I was to be in that, even if it was comedy, to be in that moment with those people that are a well-oiled machine improving, every day. This is what they do and have been so successful at. Like, to be so present in the moment, just to have a conversation with these people about this ridiculous notion that Larry and I used to bang it out. So it just, something that, like that, I was so proud that I wasn't nervous enough that it took me out of the game. And so it was almost like a blackout experience, because it's kind of like, I don't think my performance was good, but what I felt like was good was my presence. And I walked out of there almost as if I had a blackout experience. I don't know what I did in the moment, but I left there not feeling bad about myself. So, and then when the episode came out, like, I watched it between my fingers and the first time, and then I was like, okay, that wasn't bad. I don't hate myself. I don't hate myself.
Funny.
Yay, I don't hate myself.
It was a very funny episode.
So anyway, but back to the, that casting thing, and like, when you don't get something that you're really invested in, I'll tell you the times when I've been really invested, it was really because of economic fear. I wanted a job because I wanted the financial fruits of it more than I wanted the job, because I was in economic fear. But if I let go of that, and like, you have to let go of that, of what that might be for you. You have to. I don't know if you feel that way, but like, we all live job to job to job to job in this industry. And you have to let go of that in order to be that kind of present. So anyway, that's me blathering on about that.
No, I love it, because I do the whole nothing's an accident. I mean, well, first of all, I met you through Angel, because you randomly came here the day he came on now we're all here. And like I was saying, Ian, before, I saw because I go on Curb Your Enthusiasm TikTok algorithm. Like, they'll just send me everything.
Yeah.
And I saw that scene. It was hilarious. It was great. You were in the room with the main cast with that. And now you're sitting in my living room and we're doing a podcast.
Yeah.
But like, I didn't plan this. Like, but here we are.
Yeah.
That's an awesome story. And I think we were talking before, it's that impression you made on them the first time. Like, hey, even though they went a different direction for the role, they remembered you.
Yeah.
And called you.
Yeah.
And
the universe was like, no, that's not for you.
We got something. Just wait.
You're good. Just hang out a minute, Yeah. Believe that. And also, say yes to everything. I know it sounds ridiculous, but like, when I moved out here 19 years ago, my motto, and still is, say yes to everything. And like, I need these experiences to create. I need this experience to create. I need the next one, whatever that is. If it's going to a film festival, if it's, it doesn't matter what I need. You need to be doing stuff. I don't believe you can create if you are sedentary. You can't be in a log cabin in the woods by yourself, having zero experiences to create. You have to be engaging with people. So I say yes to everything, nearly everything. Nearly, I would say
you're gonna get a lot of DMs.
Yeah.
I think sorry.
No, you're fine. You go.
I think writers do need to get in a cabin in a woods now and then. I think that is one of the art forms in this industry. They do need to just be left alone. But I also agree, they've got to have lived a little life and have something to write about.
Absolutely, yeah. That's what I'm referring to.
Yeah,
for sure.
They get their isolation moment. And I 100%, one of the things I think being an actor, producer, just in this space, if I'm not like, I mean, I recommend always having something going on, whether you're reading a script or whatever, but maybe I'm not, actively on a show or something. I try to remind myself living is research and to not be too hard on myself. It's like, okay, I didn't, read a script today, or I didn't reach out to the 20 managers I'm trying to connect with today, but I did experience the sunset and saw those people in a fight on the sidewalk, and whatever little thing, good or bad, will inform my understanding of the world.
Yeah.
I think it was William Esper's first book. At the very end, acting teacher, he talked about, he would tell his classes before they broke for summer, 3 months off or whatever it was. He'd say, go out there, live life, go fall in love, go get your heart broken.
Yeah.
He goes, because you're going to be able to use all of this for your acting. So to both your points, like, yeah, I mean, that's really at the end of the day with our art, you got to live life. And I'm sure with your comedy too, like how many times do you get an idea for a bit or something just like off regular? That's why I love
I'll tell
Curb
you,
so
my
much.
most productive time was touring, was, writing. Look, if I'm experiencing stuff on the road, plus traveling with other artists or collabing on set or whatever it is, that's like, I remember, I can't tell you how many times like Margaret or I helped each other finish a bit. Like I remembered, I was saying, oh, I remember when I was a kid, like I've never dated guys, and Margaret knew this. I said, this was non sequitur to what I'm about to say, but I remember saying, oh, I used to bite my nails when I was a kid. I used to just rip them off. And my mother tried everything to like get me to stop biting my nails. And she like, rubbed my fingers in hot peppers and like bitters and all kinds of crazy stuff. And Margaret just goes, she should have rubbed them in dick. And it was really like the best joke at the moment. So it was like, she finished the bit for me. And I've done that for her. She's done it for me. But that's like where the productivity really is. It's hanging out with other artists. It's living a life. I'm not saying it's always on the road, but like a lot of my most productive months and years were, being constantly in that place of trying to create, and the freedom of, and having a life that isn't the one that I have sitting at home, I don't know. So I think we all need each other for that process. And then, yes, you need to lock yourself away when you need to write a script. But in order to get to that place, I think you have to, live a life.
100%.
Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah.
And then I know we were back, so Philadelphia.
Grew up in Philadelphia, yes.
And then Ian, where did you come from?
I came from Maine.
Oh, wow, Maine.
Yeah, I grew up in Maine my whole life until I was about 39, and then I moved out here. And I could live in Maine in the summers, but I don't think I could live there again. I love my family there. I love everybody there. I miss my friends there. I love seeing them when I get to see them. But yeah, it's just, I think I've just kind of outgrown the trudging, cold, icy, layers, and yeah, the struggle. I think I don't want that struggle. I'd like a different struggle here,
Yeah,
with
so valid.
earthquakes and fires and mudslides but yeah, so it was, there wasn't a lot of representation in Maine, growing up. I didn't see myself in others. I mean, I saw myself as a creator in others, but I didn't have any, trans representation there. So, it wasn't until I was in my late 20s did I meet my first trans man. I met lots of trans women, but I never knew. This is going to sound so silly, but I never knew that trans man existed, even though I had met numerous trans women and drag queens and performers and people in the queer community at the queer bar. Never dawned on me. Never even dawned on me. I was so blocked, kind of like Holly. Holly was a little blocked in Frosting.
Mhm.
And that, seeing Jay as, like Maddie, and not seeing that there was this other possibility. I never saw myself in anybody else. I knew I was butch. I knew I was masculine. I knew I was female bodied. I knew all of these, but I couldn't put my finger and go, oh, there I am. And so I didn't, not until like my late 20s did I meet a guy. And then, if you can see it, you can be it. And My first experience meeting a trans guy, I sobbed uncontrollably with relief of like, oh my God, that's me, that's me, that's me, that's me. And it was the probably most profound experience of my whole life because I was so blocked. And I remember thinking, I got sober when I was 21 and then again later when I was 23. And I thought that was the thing. Like, I have this thing with addiction. And then I, felt like I got that sort of into a healthy place and, stopped using and drinking and then understood my queerness and I was like, I'm Butch. I'm Butch. I'm Butch. Yeah, I'm Butch. I'm Butch. I'm Butch. I'm Butch. Yeah, I'm Butch. I'm Butch. I'm Butch. Is there something else? No, I don't know. Anyway, and then when I met this first guy that I ever met, it was such a profound moment. I just, it was such a release, like a physical, emotional, mental release of seeing myself in somebody else. And I didn't know what I wanted to do about it, but the knowing at the time was enough. And then I had to make some other decisions later down the road. But yeah, so Maine. My butchest examples in Maine were like my mother's like hearty woman friends, the wives of like, contractors like had, practical hair and shoes and, as I think it was like, I think we went there to perform and Margaret, she was like, I couldn't tell. It was like, if that's like you see a woman walking down the street and from the back and they've got a hoodie on and you can't tell if it's like a super hot butch until they turn around and it says #1 grandma, and they're just like a hearty, masculine woman who's clearly like
New England woman,
cis.
hardy.
Yeah.
Totally.
So, but those were my role models for, butchininity.
Yeah. My, coming out experience was not nearly as exciting, but some of the things you said kind of remind me of it because in high school, like I kind of thought maybe senior year, but prior to that time, I would always just be like, no, I'm not gay. Like I can't be into women. I'm just an artist. I just appreciate the female form,
Yeah.
And then eventually, so like and I didn't have a lot of like lesbian people around at the time and stuff. So as you were like, I'm just butch, like that was the equivalent to me being like, I'm just an artist. And then as I got older, I actually came out. So anyway, your story just reminded me a little bit.
Yeah.
So for both of you, is it, do you remember a specific point where you started to recognize like, I guess when did it, like you even start thinking? You said high school and then I didn't know what age.
I mean, when I was probably 7 and 8 years old, I was still like running around in Maine with my shirt off and like wearing like cut off jean shorts in the 70s and jumping in the lake with all the guy friends in our neighborhood. And neighborhood, I mean a field with houses around it. We lived in very rural Maine. And so I super identified with the boys. And so when they would kind of talk about girls like, oh, look at so-and-so, you'd be like, yeah, I'd be like, yeah, look at her. And I was into it, like I was game. I felt like one of the boys. I always felt like that. And it wasn't until I started to physically develop in adolescence that, that my mom started to pull me aside and be like, you gotta start wearing a training bra. Or, I'm like, what? No, what? Like that, the feuding and, and because it was Maine, like I could, as a girl, wear my jeans and a t-shirt. We all looked like the kids from Stand By Me. Like, we all were just filthy white t-shirts and, sleeping bags with a string on them out in the woods, like looking to build a fort, and it was all boys in the neighborhood except for me. And so like, I felt at home with all of that. It wasn't, and not that I even truly understood that I was different. I really just felt like, yeah, I'm one of the boys. I'm one of 3 boys in my family. And I just thought I am one of all the boys in the neighborhood. And not until later on that, that I started to sort of physically look a little bit different, that my mom was like, okay, that's enough. You can't run around with your shirt off anymore. And it was, that part was really devastating to me, because because I remember like laying in bed and like thinking that I was a boy, and like looking at my chest and thinking, I watched wrestling, and I would like flex in bed and be like, yeah, I can't wait till I get big pecs later. Oh, I had some big pecs later. I had triple D pecs later. But it's like one of those, all of those things as a kid, it just doesn't dawn on you. You don't really think of yourself as what everybody else thinks of you as, until you are sort of pulled out and separated because of gender, which is the stupidest thing ever. It's just the most ridiculous thing, like to be sort of pulled out and like separated. And I don't know, like all the training that goes into girls and the socialization that goes into training girls as opposed to boys. Like, boys, just let them run wild and like let them pee on everything and like be unclothed, do whatever you fucking like, and then come over here, Janet, come over here, you need to put on your clothes. Boys, you can't hang out with them anymore, they're dangerous, like essentially. And so it was a real weird, it was just a weird separation time. And so my inkling, but I did like girls back then. I had crushes on my girlfriends. It went into junior high, and my friend Fortune, who I talked about earlier, who said, the best thing, I'll repeat this advice, it's so good. She was like, I said, what do you do to like, to be on whatever project and not be scared? And she's like, I'm prepared. But she has this great bit. She's lesbian. She's the greatest bit I ever heard, because this is what I felt like my whole like pre-adolescent, like, life, all the way up into late teens, and having crushes on my girlfriends. She has this bit. She's from the South. She's from one of the Carolinas, North or South. I can't remember, but she has a Southern accent. Have you heard this bit?
I don't think I have.
Oh my God. She's so good. It's so good. She's like, my mom used to say to me in high school, I don't understand why you get so upset when your friend Michelle goes out on dates with guys. Because she's my best friend, Mom.
That's hilarious.
It's the best lesbian joke. It's like, you don't get it. You don't get it, Mom.
Yep.
And it's like, yeah, you don't get it because I'm in love with her. Like that was my entire,
so
7,
funny.
8, 9, 10 crushes on girls, like sleeping over at my girlfriend's house. I'd be like so excited to sleep over. Little did they know that I was like this excited little boy that had a crush on them. They didn't know. It was just, but that's what I felt like about all my friends, all up and through high school. And so that's when I knew. And I mean, I don't know what your tell was.
I'm not sure. I feel like I don't remember anything in particular in my childhood. But like the whole I'm just an artist storyline was my storyline for myself from probably middle through high school.
Did you have crushes before that on girls? So you were like, that were sort of notable, like in hindsight was, like,
yeah,
pure love without gender or without,
Yeah, I definitely did. I think that, and I didn't fully process it until I've like looked back on some of my friendships, and like there's this one girl, like I just really wanted to be her friend. Like she was watching this show. She was talking to the science teacher about it, and I was like, well, I'm going to start watching that show.
Yeah.
So that was definitely a thing. And sorry,
I realize it's not at that age. It's not sexual. It's not about that
when you're really young. Yeah.
But what's really weird is that like adults will start asking kids at really early ages, like, so like, Jimmy, got any girlfriends you're interested in? It's like such a weird question.
So weird.
It's like, I don't know, like, I kind of, at that time, I think I kind of loved everybody. I had a friend named Ricky Faulkner. I don't know if you're out there still alive anywhere in your 50s somewhere, but like, he was like my best friend, and he always got me into trouble. We always got into really bad trouble when I was really little, throwing rocks at cars, like at night, like stupid, like crazy stuff, like in the rural Maine. But I remember like thinking I had the same love for him that I had for, my parents' friend's kid, Karen, that like I sleep over at her house. It was never sexual, but I had the same sort of crushes and intensity of love, pure love for whoever it was. But it was so like curbed by people and redirected by people if it wasn't the right gender. Does that make sense?
No, it makes total sense.
So there was this like early on freedom that got sort of, but also even people thinking that I looked like a boy. I think I got treated like a boy until I didn't look like a boy anymore. So I think I fell into that like place of like sort of, even if I wasn't being asked, I was being asked next to my brother or other boys about girls. So I sort of identified with whatever that question was and was like, well, yeah, I kind of like Karen, or I kind of like, so-and-so, but I don't know. It's a weird time.
It's a weird time. My partner has 2 kids, and they were educated or like, I don't know, in like elementary school or something. There was some class where they were talking about like gender and sexuality. It wasn't like all of the nitty gritty, but they went over like if to be bi or straight or trans or gay. And they came home and were like talking to their dad about it. And they were like, well, I don't know. And he was, I don't know what I am. I think I'm bi. Like basically everyone in the class just decided we're all bi. And he was just like, yeah, because you're children and like you love everyone because you're a child and you're not at the point of like sexual activity influencing how you're viewing people because that's just so far from your reality right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, I
like
hear
that.
you.
No, I like that.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that like I feel like is such a weird thing about like this obsession right now with like trans youth and like the political elements of it, because it's so much about the individual child, and to make a policy that's just a blanket policy about everything doesn't make sense to me. And so much of it is just like a kid figuring themselves out.
Yeah.
And
it's been studied enough to know that kids when they're 16, 17 months, 18 months old know their gender identity. They know who they are. And from my own experience, I find that to be true. When I was old enough to speak and to disagree with my mother about the clothes she was laying out for me, it was as early as 2 years old that we began feuding about dresses. And no one taught me that. Trans wasn't a thing in Maine. It was the 70s. Like there was no examples of that around for me to point to and say I had been influenced by this at 18 months old or 2 years old, that this is what I wanted for myself. It really was already in me. And, what also, to bring this back to the film too, and there's a moment when Holly says to Jay, how long have you known this kind of thing, like about yourself? And, I think that's a funny question, because if you ask anybody about their gender identity, even if they come out in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and as, identifying not identifying with the gender marker that they were assigned at birth, and they will tell you that they have known since they were little, they have always known, and that because of lack of representation, because we didn't have a language for it, because, for the same reason left-handed people this is such a great, so I don't know, do you know the story? Like for a very long time, left-handed people were like basically banned from using their left hands and only allowed to use their right hands in schools. And if you tried, they would basically smack your hand with a ruler, not allowed to. And so nobody ever thought that it was okay to use your left hand, which is the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. And then, but basically, like, once they basically gave up this stupid arbitrary rule about you must use your right hand to write and do things, all these people came out as left-handed people. And it is the same thing with trans people. It's like, you are not allowed to be this. It doesn't exist. We don't have words for you. You cannot be this. We are going to put you in these clothes. You are going to behave this way. This is who you are. There are only 2 options here. And so the moment that someone said that is not true, someone said, who says I can't do that? The moment that person came forward and said that's not true, centuries and centuries ago, trans people have been around forever. That, RFK says pesticides created trans people. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life. Pesticides have not, trans people have been around a lot longer than pesticides.
Way longer.
However, the moment that we saw this example of someone being allowed to be themselves and express themselves in whatever way that they wanted to, there has been, an enormous growth of people coming out and saying, finally, I can speak of this. I can say, yes, me too. Yes, me too. Me too. The most powerful words on the planet is me too. And I think that very much like the left-handed rule that you can't be, soon as you remove that, and just by someone saying, well, I'm not going to use my right hand anymore, I'm not going to do it. I will not do it. That is not how I work. That is not how my brain works. That is not who I am. I am going to use my goddamn left hand. And I think that is essentially what has happened, and why people are like, think it's because we're converting people. It's like, no, these people existed, and now they are seeing that it's okay, even though we're also seeing that it's dangerous, and scary, and might not feel okay. But it is okay in the sense that you are not the only person who's ever felt this way. We have been around forever. People have been feeling this way forever. And anyway,
I love it. Okay, I'm gonna follow up on that. I think 100% on terms of representation. I looked up some stats earlier today just to have an idea. About 1% of the U.S. population identifies as being trans or non-binary. Of the, I think it was 18 to 30-year-old group, it's 5%. And I think that this younger generation just has had examples and they're able to see and be themselves that just wasn't possible before.
Yeah.
And while it is still dangerous, partially because of laws and rules that are being put in place, and partially because of prejudice just from people around you, there is the community that exists and is more public now than ever before, at least in U.S. history.
Yeah.
One more side note on the left hand thing. I saw this meme recently where the girl was like, my boyfriend's left-handed. For Christmas, I got him left-handed scissors. And now I just hear him joyfully laugh in the other room, and he'll yell over to me, hey, you want to see me cut something? Which is just so cute.
That's amazing.
Right? But that's the thing. It's like, oh, you create a space where someone can truly be themselves, and then they can celebrate it and they want to share it with others.
Yeah. I mean, how important is that? Like, you think about, whether it be trans people and queerness, or whether it be a lefty, or whether it be people with disabilities, to be seen and to have access to the world in a way that allows you to feel included and your full self. And I will tell you something, this process for me, and having my family love me no matter what through this, has also been a major foundation in affording me that belief that I can do anything. And I'll tell you that had I not had that, I probably would be really wrapped up in my head about how I don't have a family that loves me. I'm not worthy. I couldn't possibly do this. I think that people don't understand when they are, sort of essentially giving up their children because of their harmful, hurtful beliefs, that they're not just giving up that person, but they are also, like, I don't want to say dooming, but they are going to, it's not the world that's going to make their life hard. It is their lack of love from you that is going to make their life harder. It is not, the guy that they don't know that hates trans people. It is the family members that are not giving the support. I'll tell you that I'm dead serious when I say this. if I had not had the love of this family that I have, and my parents were like, you know, we don't get it, but we love you no matter what. Help us understand. We're probably too old to understand. We probably reached our limit in a lot of ways, and that's not exactly their words, but essentially their sentiments. And then there was times like in the very beginning, my mom was very, very afraid for my safety. My dad was, and you know, but with them saying we love you no matter what, that truly, absolutely afforded me the gift of being in LA today, chasing whatever I want to chase. Period. And I don't think that people understand what they're doing to people when they say, well, I just can't deal with this. You can't be part of this family anymore. And I know that's like not exactly what people's families say, but it is such I've seen the other side with friends and how their struggle today, and it has been their struggle from the moment that it happened. And it is something that will consume you until it is resolved. It is really, even if you can resolve it on your own and, you know, I'm okay with it. I'm okay. Without that, people don't understand that that is such a massive dent in your foundation to chase your dreams, because it is kind of always this like nagging thing that is part of you that that even if you do all the work in therapy and all the work on yourself and whatever those things are to do that work, like you know, you are I don't know. I don't want to say disabled, but you are what's the word? Not disabled, but like
Crippled.
Harmed.
Debilitated.
Yeah.
Basically handicapped. You know, like kind of like some, you know,
Shackled or something.
Yeah. And you might still be able to function in the world. You might be able to like move through the world, but you still have this thing, you know, that like it may not be always the thing that you come back to, but people just don't understand like that, you know, you're not just disowning, like you are debilitating that person,
There it is.
you know, and for what? For what? You know, like that to me, like that'll be the unanswerable question for me. For what?
Especially as a parent. I mean, I'm not a parent, so I really can't speak from experience.
Well, as a dog parent.
As a dog parent.
I'm
As
just
a dog
kidding.
sitter.
Yeah, I'm just kidding.
The idea of you know, having a child and going through all that happens through that process to I mean, even just like the process of like being pregnant or like supporting your partner through their pregnancy, that is a loving bonding moment before there's even a child out in the world. And then to just cut yourself off from the love that you have for that person because of who they are in their hearts. I feel like there's a lot of pain within someone who would choose to do that to someone in their life. And it's just more harmful to them to make that choice
Yeah.
when they could embrace, hey, there's something in me that I need to work on. And my child is here coming to me, telling me that they're gay or trans or whatever. And this is an opportunity for me to learn.
You just made me think of this. Did you see that series, a limited series? It was about the AIDS pandemic in London in the 80s. And it was so beautifully done. And there were all these kids, like club kids, that were dying of AIDS. And they were being locked away in hospital rooms by themselves, and their friends could come in and see them. But so even nurses and doctors barely went into the rooms. And there was this scene where this mother went in to see her dying son, and she came out and there was this other mother in the room next door, and one of the mothers was a little bit more sort of evolved about her gay son than the other, and the one that was a little, I would say, less evolved about her gay son and him dying, she came out and kind of said something, you know, played dumb, that, you know, she had no idea, you know. And this other mother basically stopped her in her tracks and was like, that is some bullshit. You are a mother, you know your son. There's no way on earth you did not know that he was gay. Like, do not play that shit with me. I am a mother. And I thought that moment was so profound for me. I want to find, I can't remember the name of the series. Someone listening is going to go, I know what that is. And it was so beautiful because I think about all of these parents who claim that they don't understand or they didn't know. And it's like, you were a fucking parent, you knew, and you're doing this anyway. This isn't a matter of shock and awe, because when I told my mother, she was not like, what? My mother was now, my mother knew. There was some part of her that knew. And now she will admit that. But it took her a long time to get to that place. She's like, yeah, I guess there was something I couldn't put my finger on, something. It's like a mother knows, a parent knows, a father knows. And I just have to say, I call bullshit on any parent who has ever said that it was a shock that their kid was queer or trans or non-binary, that in whatever sort of variation of that, their kid coming to them and saying that is just like, I'm sorry, you raised that child, you birthed that child, you have been with this child every day. There is no way you don't know. That is just utter, anyway, but so and you will do that anyway, makes you a monster. And it makes
Not pulling punches here.
No, it's like you're the monster. Like if you knew your child was queer or trans or non-binary and you on some level you knew and you were going to do this and unlove them anyway, you are a monster. So like,
and I get, people are socialized a lot of different ways, and maybe not that they're shocked, they knew, they don't want to know, right? But even if you don't want to know, you're the parent, you're the adult here. Like, let's buck up and learn some things about your child or about yourself, and maybe about your community. That if you're not in a space that's like loving and inclusive to anyone, do you want to be part of that space? Have you been informed accurately about these people that you don't know anything about? Like, sure, that's another example. Like maybe your child's like a little different, gay, whatever. You don't maybe want that to be true, but also, do you know anything about what this actually means for your kid? It just means that they love in a different way. It's not
a better way. Sorry.
Sorry. All love is good. We endorse all love here.
But when they say love is love, and I have friends who are like hardcore, like, 80s queers who are like, fuck that. Love is not love. Gay love, queer love is so much fucking better than cis, het, straight love, whatever. There's a part of me is like, yeah, because of the risk level that you have to take to allow yourself is so much higher. And I just think risk equals reward. It's fucking better. I'm sorry. Like, it's I
hear you. I did see another meme. I just read memes all day, pretty much.
I'll tell you about my meme after.
Okay, perfect. And it was like, it makes sense that older generations say that marriage is such a like ball and chain or is so hard, when a lot of them got married out of peer pressure. Marriage as an institution is a big peer pressure thing. For women, it was a survival thing because, women couldn't have credit cards until the 70s. So it was just kind of I'm not saying there were not happy marriages. I trust there were, but the peer pressure, there's no peer pressure to be trans in the greater society now. It's actively discouraged.
Contrary to the stupid narrative from the far right, there is no peer
so
pressure.
There is, I hear you in terms of the boldness and the bravery of embracing that and embracing queer love.
I know I'm being like super harsh, but I do want to say this, like, there's always a way back from being a monster.
There we go.
There is always a way back. And if there's some like Republican Trumper, some guy out there that was a minister whose son is trans. Did you see this story? And now he's understanding that his vote for Trump has really gone against his son's rights and well-being. And his son may lose some of his gender affirming care because of who he voted for. And he's just acting sort of dumbfounded that his vote did that. And I'm just like, no, like, you knew what it would do. Own it. There's a way back from that. You can come back from being a monster. You can come back from that. And I don't want to say, like, just flat out say you are doomed to be a monster your whole life, because you're not. But it really is going to take a conscious effort of your own unraveling, your own undoing, your own sort of deprogramming. And I really love this notion from, do you know Alok Manan? Alok is a trans non-binary person who is a public speaker and a comic, and just so goddamn profound. And they said this, they were on a podcast that I was watching, and I was in tears listening to this, because, you know, people are constantly asking trans people and non-binary people, like, help us understand, like, what it is that you need and what we can do for you. And Alok just said, how about I help you? Like, free yourself from all of this ideology that you have been trained, you know, by the very people who have said to love you, also set out to destroy you, like, by giving you these ideas that you couldn't just be you, whoever you are, whatever that presented in your gender. And I'm paraphrasing, but, like, you know, just essentially, like, whoever did this to you, to think that there's something wrong with this, that I must explain myself to you so you can understand. How about I help you get free? And I thought that was, like, such the flip of narrative. And I think that that's the monster's way back, is that they have to undo what was done to them. And I think the only difference is that trans people are a half step ahead of those people that also need to sort of have their own undoing and allow themselves to come undone, as Duran Duran says. You know, dating myself, but to allow themselves to come undone, and to basically, back to our original theme, like, who says? Allow yourself to ask yourself, who says I have to be this way? Who says that I must fit into these parameters every day? Who says that I must be hyper masculine or hyper feminine in order to be loved? Like, how is it that I can't just be whatever I want to be on any given day and be loved? Why is that not the norm rather than these other things? So I think that Monster's way back is to allow for their own undoing and to step ahead and walk with us, and you know, not you know, it's okay to be afraid. I mean, I still am afraid sometimes. I'm a little worried about, you know, if we're going to be in camps. I have jokes out there that are on the interwebs that, that I think are hilarious. But, you know, there's people out there that might deem them, you know, not hilarious, and maybe my freedom of speech might get me into trouble, and maybe I'm, you know, going to be this is things I think about. I think, about my passport and travel, and what if I travel somewhere and I come back and, like, my birth certificate doesn't I mean, like, these are scenarios. Look, I know walking down the street, I'm not going to be a target. I understand that about my sort of visual, you know, what I look like walking down the street, but, you know, I'm still afraid, but I'm just not afraid about necessarily the same things that other people, non-trans, non-binary people, cis people are afraid of. Anyway.
Yeah. No, and I think that I appreciate you being here today, because, you know, we talked originally about the film and everything. And obviously, as you were saying, like, it's really not on the trans societies, like trans people's plate. It shouldn't be on trans people's plate to educate everyone about what's going on. But to be able to have you share your perspective here, about the concerns that you live with that just don't exist for other people.
Yeah, sure.
It's so valuable. And I really appreciate you sharing that. Because we were talking about, we would want to talk about it. And as an ally, like, love to provide information, but it's always, I think, in terms of speaking of the experience, I appreciate you sharing that.
I love that you said you're an ally, but I would say that everybody in this room is trans of some sort.
Okay.
And I say that because not anyone in here is 100% okay with what their gender presentation is that they have constructed on sort of any given day. There's always like a tinge of like, maybe I'm not enough. Maybe I'm, because of the pressures and the parameters that we've been given. And I did a TED Talk on it. You can watch it. Everybody's trans. But basically, like, there are people out there, way over exercising in order to have a certain body type to be super masculine. There are people modifying their bodies to be more feminine or more masculine that are not identifying as trans. There are cisgender people who are getting breast augmentations. There are, men who are getting pectoral implants, calf implants, people who are modifying their bodies to be more of whatever that gender idea is that they have in their head. And they don't consider themselves trans whatsoever, but they are doing all the same things that trans people are doing to affirm their own gender. So, like, your guy who's taking you to the gym, bro, come with me. Let's go work out. We'll get our fucking bodies. Like, me, like, I'm just like,
let's take some creatine, protein. Let's go.
Yeah. I mean, even if that's like how you want to look and you love looking like that, you are constructing your gender in that way too. Like, what your idea of a man looks like and what you want it to look like on you. And so, and where that falls on any given day, and I just, so I think that we all have this in us. And so when you said ally, I wanted to be like, no, you are part of this family. You are part of this family. You are part of this family. And that I don't feel like there's a separation in that of allyship. We are in this together. We all have these shared feelings. We might call it something different. Like, I had chest surgery to make my body feel more masculine, to fit what I had in my head. There are women who are getting breast augmentations because they wanted to feel more feminine in their bodies. And I'd want to say, what's the difference? We're just calling it something different. Like, I'm saying I'm trans and she's saying I want a boob job. Like, I'm like, it's like...
Yeah,
So
no,
That's
I hear
really
you. I love that.
interesting. I've never heard that perspective put that way.
So, I mean, I just think that, you can be an ally and speak up because you're how you identify, but we all, this is not just my thing. And to sort of echo Alok with that sentiment, like, let me help you get free because you are here too. This affects you too. Trans issues are women's issues. Women don't seem to understand that DEI affects women, cis women, the most. So when we're talking about diversity, equity, inclusion, it is absolutely, it's like people don't understand that we're basically talking about everybody except for cis white men.
Yeah.
Everybody.
The veterans are affected by
Yes,
cut DEI
absolutely.
programs.
So, I mean, so when it comes to gender, we're all in this together in my mind. So I love that you said ally. I'm not correcting you, but I'm just offering another perspective that I think that we are all in this together and that this is all of our issue and fight and love and community. Like, we are all like, like those, the bros out there, like, sort of, forgive me for like saying the other side, but like conservative bros on the other side, these uber, hunting and canned farm places to like kill zebra for the fuck of it. Like, those guys, like, they have serious issues about their gender. They are struggling with this, like, I just think that, this, so we say allies, but this is, it's everybody's issue.
The binary is a struggle for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
In its own way, or in that person's own way.
I love you look on your face right now.
I have like 50 questions.
I love that. Yeah, you have been such a good listener.
No, I just want to acknowledge, thank you both so much. I thought that was beautiful. Like, because I think the first question I have, I'll start with like, what's the biggest misconception? I guess, where are people getting this mixed up at? Because we live in a world of social media posts and quick did you see what they said here? Did you see what they, and oh, that's the truth right there. So, but when you sit down and you listen, I love the left-handed, and I'd never heard that before. It reminded me of the 4-minute mile thing, when for years no one had ever run a 4-minute mile, but all of a sudden one person did it and a bunch of people ran a 4-minute mile.
Yeah.
And what I thought was interesting about both you guys telling your story with this is it's not like, I think one of the misconceptions, and correct me if I'm wrong, that people like, they're just converting, everyone's getting converted left and right, where no, these were like years of like what's going on. You know what I mean? It's not like one night, oh yeah, I'm going to change my gender or whatever.
Or like,
so I really appreciate you guys telling the story, because it really paints the picture. Like, this is something that people are dealing with for a very, very long time. And it's not just with themselves, as you pointed out, it's with close family members. And I just thought that was very interesting. So I guess to both of you, what's the biggest thing that people misconception, I guess, if that's the right
I
way
guess
to put it?
if you don't, I'll just hop in. Cause I feel like a lot of it is about body stuff, which does definitely tie into all of the binary, living with the binary, where it's not like, okay, I'm going to get a sex change operation tomorrow. So exactly what you're saying. There's a lot of time that goes into it. And I think, especially with trans youth, Frosting does deal with a 16-year-old, but even younger, a child may come out and say that they're trans. And gender affirming care is as simple as calling them by the pronoun that they want. So when people say gender affirming care, I feel like their immediate thought goes to like needles and starting tea immediately and having top surgery, when that stuff is not an immediate situation. And a lot of times
Or if ever. Sometimes all somebody needs is to name it.
Yeah.
Name how they're feeling, and having someone affirm it by listening is
Yeah.
sometimes all that they need. And it also changes. Like, over time, it develops into what it will be. So anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, 100%. Like, non-binary people aren't trying to look like a man or a woman, they're just living, right? And another just sort of health element to consider, especially with the younger trans youth, most likely, if a medical intervention does take place, it's something like going on puberty blockers or hormone blockers, excuse me, which are given to other straight cis children if they are having early onset puberty, right? So it's not even like the medical care is that different when a young trans person comes out. It's so I think like this concept of, oh, they're giving out free sex change operations and
At school.
Yeah, and like
that's kind of how it comes off.
It really does. It does.
Right,
like they're
right.
grooming the children, and it's like, no, like this is a thought out process, and it's so much of it is emotional, mental before any of it becomes physical. And again, even it doesn't have to result in any physical changes. So
yeah, I think, even for me as a 28-year-old, when I understood who I was and saw my first trans guy, I really just needed to utter it to another person for probably the first 8 years of that discovery, and saying it out loud at 28, even though I had this recollection of who I was when I was very small and how I wanted to present myself, even when I was really little. Like, I just needed this. When I finally had a language for it, I just needed to share it, because it's one of those things that it's like, I don't know, like when you discover something about yourself so profound, whether it's like you like lobster or whether it is your gender identity, like it is very hard to keep something in about yourself that you discovered, period, the end. Like, and you shouldn't have to, it is very much, anyway, but I think for me and for anybody, I think we all need to sort of quiet the voices of other people at the beginning and just be heard. And for me, like a lot of people were like, so what does this mean? Are you going to change your gender marker? Are you going to change your name? Are you going to have surgery? Are you going to go on hormones? It's like, I don't know. I don't know any of that.
Slow down, you guys.
And certainly a kid doesn't know that. And, they might know that later on as they develop into themselves and have the freedom to develop into themselves. But I think really it's an acknowledgement of your discovery. It's kind of like, I don't know. I think that in itself, like back to that foundational love that we get from family, it allows you the freedom and space to figure it out, the figure outable after you have that. And I think that, so the misconception is that some massive thing is going to happen when really not a lot is going to happen. Like,
Yeah.
It's like, this gender affirming care, it's almost like, I wish they would have said like, well, it's kind of like, I understand that there's medical terminology for it, but it makes it sound like something that is a medical plan, and it's not. It's not. It's an acknowledgement. It's honoring what somebody has to say about themselves, and to allow that to be figure outable.
Yeah, there's a lot of like medical care scare language.
Oh yeah.
That I think is really confusing.
Yeah.
And that's some of the stories you hear. And do you think it can work the opposite way sometimes if a younger person is like explaining to their parents, hey, I think I'm this. And then do you think some parents could have an influence? Like, well, we need to put you on this, this, and this, when maybe that, like you said, that may not be the path
let me tell you, no parent is doing that, because no parent, first of all, they probably don't know enough already, unless they happen to be an endocrinologist parent. No parent is doing that. There's nobody that's like going to be like, great, let's get this underway. Right. Nobody is going to do that. Every parent is going to, who is decent at what they do, is going to listen, and they're just going to like, they're going to be figuring it out as they go as well. I mean, they're probably going to start Googling some stuff. They're going to probably talk to the physician or, a family therapist or whoever it is, just so that they are also guided in the right ways. No parent, it doesn't work. And I know it's a good question, but it is absolutely, no parent.
Yeah, I think that it's a good question, and that there is messaging out there around grooming and stuff like that. Yeah. I agree. Well, first of all, no, for a parent who loves a child and is raising them in society today, they are probably going to be really concerned about how that child will be treated if they are trans. So in terms of the safety, which circles back to frosting, right? So in terms of taking action, there is a process, and they are probably going to slow roll through the process. Not to mention, then there is the medical care element. A doctor, if a parent were to take their child, which again, they're not going to do, and is like, put my 5-year-old on testosterone. No parent, I mean, no doctor is going to do that, right? So there's
no
checks
parent's
and
going to do
balances.
it. No doctor's going to do it.
Exactly.
I think the medical care really is going to be family therapy and finding community, because this is very much medical care and part of like a health plan for a kid. And for gender affirming care, part of that is finding community for that kid, where they are going to be safe, where they might have other kids that feel similar, other parents that feel similar. So I can't tell you how many parents have contacted me and said, my kid's in high school, they're struggling. They identify as a trans man, and is it possible that I could connect them with you? I'm like, absolutely. And those people are in the middle of Iowa. They don't have a lot of community that understand or feel like they do. So part of that plan is also finding community. So being alone and lonely can become a medical condition that becomes life-threatening. So I absolutely think that, it's probably family therapy and finding community and affirming that what your child is saying is real, and that it will develop, and that it will be more is to be discovered, more will be revealed. But there is no medical plan that's like, okay, at this age we're going to do this, at this age we're going to do. It's like some might not want that, and that will be discovered in that process.
Yeah, I think we were mentioning earlier that transitioning and is just so much about that individual person's understanding of their identity. And a lot of the conversation, though, around trans people is about policy. And policy is just this blanket concept that doesn't really take into account the individual needs of that person, of any single person. So I don't know, the hubbub about trans people in sports, I think, is a good example of that, because, oh, trans kids can't play sports. Well, did you do sports in high school or college? What sports did you play?
Basketball.
Right, basketball, you mentioned. What are some things you learned playing basketball outside of dribbling and shooting hoops?
Oh, dedication, hard work, teamwork, getting good grades
Yes.
so you can play.
Exactly.
Not getting in trouble so you don't.
Accountability.
Accountability, yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
I did sports through high school and college as well. Those are all things I think of whenever
I didn't learn any of that shit, by the way. No, I'm kidding. I'm just kidding.
Did you do sports?
I tried, but I was a quitter.
That's okay. You were an experimenter.
I was just afraid of being competitive. That's what it was. I didn't want to hurt anybody.
Style.
I didn't want to get hurt. I didn't want to get anyone to hurt anybody or anybody to hurt me. So I was like, I liked one-on-one things. I like tennis.
Love that.
Love that. But the team sports,
that's a sport.
I was so afraid of letting people down. So
that's hard.
I just had a real.
That's hard.
Yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
Well,
all of those things you learned.
I learned all those things. You learned those things being on sports team. Are you a professional athlete today?
I am not.
Neither am I. And I think that's usually how it ends up for most kids who start playing soccer at age 5. They're on their club team. Maybe they play sports through high school and college. But in terms of these concerns about, trans women taking the opportunities of cis women at the Olympics, at the highest levels of sports, it's just, why would you disenfranchise the thousands, potentially millions of young children who will become better citizens by playing on a sports team with a policy that doesn't really benefit society as a whole and targets a very specific group of people that just don't need to be targeted?
Also, can I just say, to sort of add to what you're saying, look, I like basketball. I like, kid sports. It's adorable. Even all the way up to college stuff. It's adorable. And I hope that this is met with the sentiment that I intend it with. And it's okay if it's not. People are listening, watching, whatever. But I'm sorry. The stakes are not that fucking high. It's a sport. Get the fuck over yourselves. This person is doing it for the same reason that you're doing it. They love the sport. They love the sportsmanship. They love the team, the camaraderie, the bonding, the friendship, the responsibility, all of the stuff that you said earlier. No one is doing this to outdo or worse, to be in a locker room and be perverse. It's the only people that are being perverse about that are the adults. No, and so there's a part of me that's I'm sorry, your college sports even, the stakes are not even that high. And this is probably, I don't even know the stats, but aren't people who are going to play pro sports plucked before that who are going to go pro? Isn't it a high school student who has demonstrated extreme athleticism beyond their siblings on the court or in the field or whatever, that they are so outstanding that they are usually plucked before that? So no one is going to take your Olympic trial from you because they were born with, different genitalia than you, and that, that somehow they're going to outdo you and get a spot in the Olympics that you are somehow not going to get. That is not the case. It is truly about policing trans people's bodies and policing the existence of trans people. It has zero to do with sports. Because of those, there are no stakes in which those 10 NCAA athletes that are out there, 10 in this country.
Out of 500,000, approximately.
10 are not one of those are taking a spot on an Olympic team or a professional team from you. Sorry, that's not the issue. It is truly about policing trans people's existence and where they are allowed to be in this world. And, male spaces are predominantly, sports are male spaces, period. Even when women are playing the sports, it is men who's deciding if they're on TV. It is the majority, it's just still men's spaces. So it is men's control over where trans people get to exist. Anyway.
I will build on that in that it's controlling trans bodies and women's bodies in particular, because this argument of like, real women, cis women are going to lose out. Well, also though, it's cis women, trans women who are going to be forced to be examined before they can play a sport. Like there's not nearly as much concern about examining the men to make sure they have dicks or not, but to see if they can play. So it's just, I think, a very much a policing of trans bodies and another attack on women's bodies.
Absolutely.
As well.
I agree. Yeah. Oh Lord.
Sorry, I brought this up.
I just don't think, I'm sorry. I just don't think that sports are that precious. And when people get upset about thinking that somehow like that someone was born with different genitalia or born assigned male at birth, transition is a trans woman and wants to play sports. I'm sorry. Like, I just don't think sports are that precious that you should be concerned that they're somehow going to outdo some other person on the court or field or wherever. I think that's so ridiculous.
I do have a question. I think, because one of the things I've heard is like maybe a sport like boxing, for example, like something that's very physical. And if there's, would be trans woman be the right word, that still has that male strength, if you will. Is there a line, I guess I'm asking, where there's some circumstances where maybe, or you think it should be allowed anywhere? I don't know if that question came out right.
In male boxing, in what, like you going up against Holyfield or going up against who? Like, are we talking about in the octagon or what are we talking about?
So like
if a trans
if it was
woman,
women's boxing, for example, and a male decided to be a trans woman and enter that sport against those women, but they still have that male strength still, I guess that's where I'm coming from.
In the professional arena?
The higher levels, yeah.
I think, first of all, it's essentially privatized. It's not like it's like the people who are creating those athletes and who run that sort of thing. It's privatized. It's not the NCAA. If it is, I just don't think it's that precious. But if you have 50 mil at stake and you're I just think that I doubt, it has not come up yet because I highly doubt that there is necessarily a trans woman out there, and I could be wrong, that wants to be in the boxing world against other women. And if there is, this is going to sound harsh, but I just don't think it's that precious. Like, it's just not. It's like, why are you upset? Because why? I don't know. Like, I just, like, for the protection of that other person in the ring. Is that what we're worried about?
I think that's the argument. A lot of people like safety
or the potential unfair ability of that person. That person doesn't have to agree to the fight. That's how boxing matches work. Someone has to be challenged. Someone has to accept. Just don't accept it if that's what you do. You don't want to get in that ring with that person.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
But I still just think that people are so. It's like, I'm sorry, basketball, boxing, baseball. Like, it is not that important. It is not that important.
And
and that was an extreme example, but what's interesting
in any context, it's not that fucking important.
It's interesting. I thought of as we're talking this, I remember back in, I don't even remember, but high school football, I didn't play football, but I'd go to the games. There would be once in a while a woman on the football team,
Yeah.
and because there
Or
was no
ice
women's
hockey
football.
too.
Yeah,
Ice hockey
no, that's
too
a
is
great
kind of
example.
a more common. Yeah.
But now they have more leagues and they're creating more leagues. But back then it's like, look, if that woman really wanted to play football, like she had to
Join the
join.
guys'
There
team.
was no other choice.
Right.
Yeah.
So I just randomly thought of that.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
mean,
as we're
I
talking.
don't know. What were you going to say? You had it.
I was just going to say that first of all, should there be a trans woman who's gets into professional boxing? Like, there has been a decade of transitioning, right, happening. So I think just circling back to what we were saying earlier of this is not a quick decision, quick
Right.
turnaround.
Fair
right?
point. Yeah.
And then also, if a man is boxing and decides that he wants to have an upper hand, so he's going to transition, that's that individual being malicious about his choices because he wants to have an upper hand. That, like if he authentically wants to transition, I wish him the best, truly. But if it's just a matter of like messing with people, that's
Which
kind
I know
of offensive.
No one is doing that. That's
Yeah.
the other thing.
Right, men don't want to be women
My friend
usually.
Jay McBride, she's like, she has the best joke about it. She's like, talking about like, as if that is a thing. It is not a thing. It is not a thing. No one is doing this out of, with malice or as a joke so they can win the title. They couldn't do it in the men's ring, so they're going to transition and do it. That's so ridiculous.
Wild.
And I think to the point, I mean, that goes with the whole narrative thing, right? And that's why I'm so appreciative of you guys sitting down and like talking this through. Because I think a lot of people, if they were, and hopefully will listen and tune in, leave with this with just a better like, oh, I never thought of it like that. Like,
when I say it's not that precious, I just want to say we need to evaluate or think about what we are valuing over human lives being policed on whether or not we should exist. The really foundation of this is, do we have the right to exist in any space? Not just the sports world, but anywhere. So, so let's say we square it away. Trans people aren't allowed in professional sports. Let's pretend that we square that away. What's next? Where else are we not allowed? Where else? What's the next place? Because that is like the place right now that we are focusing on. And I say we are. I'm not like I am in this conversation, but like that is the angle, the narrative we have right now. But that is like every person fighting that fight or the architects of that fight know that that's not the fight. The fight is whether we have the right to exist, period. Not just in that world, but in every other world. So let's start chipping away at it here, because if we can get a bunch of people to agree with that, then we can get them to agree to the next space that they're not allowed in and the next one. And so I think that people need to sort of loosen their grip on the preciousness of these sports that like they think that somehow their kid who's really talented is really the number one on the team is going to have a chance at the whatever, big pie in the sky thing that they're excited about, like that somehow that person is going to take from them if they're on that team. Is you need to reevaluate and rethink your values if you think your kid's spot in whatever professional team is worth more than that trans person's life, period. Because that is what it's about. It is not about the spot on the team or the advancement of your child into other, advanced sports. It is about the existence of that person's right to live. So that is the fight. It is not about the team. It's about something else. And so that's like when I keep saying it's not precious, that's what I mean. What's precious is human life, that we are all fucking precious, and that person has a right to be on that team just as much as your kid does. And that love is not divided. Love is multiplied in every situation unless you divide it. And so I just think that, we need to loosen our grip and loosen our sort of ideology on what we think that opportunity means for our kid in sports. Like, I'm sorry, your kid's just not that special in sports. They're just not. Like, it really takes someone, an exceptional athlete to get to that level. No offense to your kid. They're probably amazing. You all think it. I'm sure they are, but it's not more amazing. Their life is not more precious than that other person, that trans person. So anyway,
I think you're talking about, the bigger scale of, an inhospitable world.
Yeah, we're in reality, most of it's going to be what, junior high soccer, or
Right.
Yeah, I know.
Right.
The boxing and that those are extreme
Sure.
example, but yeah.
And then also so the policing of where trans people are allowed to be, there's that level of cruelty, of inhospitality. I'm
not going to try. I'm not going to try.
Okay,
I'm
cool,
going to let you struggle.
Thank you. Okay,
because I'm going to do it worse.
That's fine. But
inhospitable.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not going to say it. Again,
okay.
But thank you.
Okay.
So I was, just looking up some stats and stuff, and between 2018 and 2022, there were 48 anti-trans laws enacted in the US. And during that time, trans and non-binary people ages 13 to 25, the attempted suicide rates increased from 38% to 44%. So the policing of bodies, its overall issues in terms of what comes next, but then there's also the cruelty of the policing that has a very direct impact on a individual person's understanding of themselves and the value that they hold in the world. And I think, as you were saying, life has value. Every life has value. So the idea again of this cruelty it has very serious repercussions, and it can be stopped. It's not necessary, is what I think. The unnecessary bullying is what really gets under my skin.
I think to add to that too is I want people to know when they have been weaponized by using this and jumping on board because of their own kids playing sports or whatever. You are being played and used as weapons in this fight. I would hope that any parent, if listening to this kind of conversation or thinking for themselves and having this thought of hopefully just to maybe rethink about what the narrative actually is. It is not about someone taking your kid's spot. It is about whether these kids are allowed to exist, period. And that is the fight. And do you want to be in that fight? Because it's not the one they're telling you, which is that the spaces, the spots and spaces where your kid is in their athleticism, in their greatness, is going to be stolen from someone with greater strength because of their gender assignment at birth, which is absolutely ridiculous. Or worse, that do you want a man in the locker room with your little girls? And it's first of all, whatever that kid is also a kid the same age as your kids. The only men or adults in the locker rooms are coaches and parents and that teachers or whoever. And so they make it sound like this uneven sort of playing field where there's some adult man who has transitioned to be a woman who is now in the locker room leering over little girls. And it's no, you have a little kid who's in the locker room with other little kids. You know what? No one is being a perv about this but the adults. So I think that I hope that, people catch on and understand how they're being weaponized and how their thinking is being weaponized.
Just to add on to that, when you're concerned, this is kind of like the locker room, kind of like bathroom stuff going on, you're not really scared of trans women. You're not really scared of trans women. You're scared of men. Because a trans woman is statistically quite unlikely to try to harass another woman in the bathroom. But a man might. And so the concern is really, I think it's a false equivalent, the way that there's this concern about trans people sharing bathrooms with cis people. And the fact that actual harm is usually caused by a guy who's a bad actor.
Yeah. The only people who are really getting attacked in restrooms are trans people.
That is true too.
I mean, those are the people who are, again, being policed about their existence in spaces that we are not allowed. I say we are not allowed to be in. So, but ironically, this is what always baffles me: is the fight is always about trans women in girls and women's spaces. It's never about guys like me. They never think of the flip side. As much as I was blocked about my own existence and knowing that trans men existed, they are also equally blocked that trans men exist. So when they say you must use the bathroom that that matches your assignment at birth, well, that means, ladies, I'm going to be, and I did an episode. I have to tell you this is actually, I think this is really funny, and I was hoping that they'd pick it up, but I did an episode of Will and Grace, and basically Karen Walker was having a MAGA cake made for the president. And the bakery, the owner of the bakery, would not make it. And so Karen goes down there with Grace and says, come help me get this woman, this liberal, to make a MAGA cake for me. And so she's like, look, freedom of speech, like, you should just make it. She goes, I'm not for it, but like, whatever. And so I step up and I'm the assistant to the baker. And I had a line pitch for the writers, because there was someone in a wheelchair, someone who was disabled in a wheelchair in the bakery. And Karen Walker says, he speaks up and says, you are horrible. He mocks the disabled. Why would you have a birthday cake made for him? Karen Walker's like, that's enough out of you, my friend. Thanks for the wide bathroom stalls, but that's enough out of you. And then this Latino woman steps up and says, he is horrible, to Latin people. Like, how could you support this man? And she's like, a little less Cesar Chavez and a little bit more Ted Cruz, please. And I pitched to the writers. I said, I come out and say, you know what, like, I say to Grace, I'm like, you sound like you're on her side. And she's like, no, I am not on her side. I am with her, not her. And referring to Hillary. And she's like, and I'm not going to take it from a cis white guy, from a white guy. And I'm like, I'm trans. And she's like, did not know that, because of how I look. But I pitched a line for Karen Walker to say, like, see you in the ladies' room. Because that is exactly what none of these people are thinking, is that if you want the rules the way you want them, then this is what you're going to have in the ladies' room. This is what you're going to have in the ladies' room. And so, first of all, I think it's utterly ridiculous that we have this rule anyway. We all use the same bathroom at home, sometimes at the same time. We all share, gender neutral spaces together it's like that there is this separation is really because we have been taught that cis men cannot control themselves and that it is everybody else's fault but their own. If they stumble, it is because of our feet, not their own. So it's something that but I think it's utterly hilarious that they will make these laws really targeting trans women. I don't think that's hilarious, but without the thought of what then happens with trans men. Until recently, all my IDs still said F for female on them. And I had them all changed when I had to renew my passport and my driver's license. My birth certificate still says female on it. I haven't changed that. But if I have to abide by these rules, this is what you're going to get. So it's just utterly ridiculous to me that this has not been thought through.
It's all pretty kooky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is really about the right to exist in any space. That's really the bottom line. So
you bring a really good perspective, because you're right. Like, the trans women, people focus on that, but you're like, hey, there's another.
Have you heard an argument about a guy like me in any of this?
No,
never. It's about policing women and trans women and girls. So,
and I have to acknowledge, I really find it fascinating. You talked about, you were 28 when you met your first trans man? Was it was just really, I don't know. I for someone that like you said, you'd been wondering your whole life to have that moment. You know, like I guess when I'm bringing that up, it's like, how can you deny that from somebody? How can I say, oh, you didn't really feel, you know what I mean? Like, it's like you knew
Well, you know
that it
what's
was,
nice? I'll tell you something. It took me a long time to get here, and everybody in here probably has this sensation. If you know who you are, it's inarguable. I don't have to justify myself to you. Once I learned who I was, like, I have never had to argue with anybody since I figured it out. Like, when I was confused, I was like, I don't, I'm like, there was like a sense of like my own confusion. I couldn't stand my own ground because I didn't know what my ground was. And I just think that once you figure out who you are, it just becomes an inarguable point to even sort of like it's probably one of the most beautiful places to land, and that like I don't have to argue or justify or prove or uh anything to anybody anymore about, I don't know, it's just it's probably one of the most profound beautiful moments of my life. And there was a switch that really flipped in me that was like, oh, I don't there's no struggle anymore around this. Like, there's still stuff to figure out, but I know who I am now. And it was this clarity and this peace that came over me that that anyone who loves me would be happy for me about, like, and could sense it, that could sense sort of and not intentionally, but an inauthenticity before, a struggle before, like, I kind of can't put my finger on you. And then that switch is flipped, and to be able to have that moment, I think that happens with anybody once they really figure out who they are.
Yeah, I feel like with age, I have been becoming like more familiar with myself, more accepting of myself. And if someone gives me a problem, it's kind of like, well, that's their problem, not mine. So just sort of, I think, a similar thing as people get older.
Isn't the word unfuckwithable?
I
Kind of
like
like
it.
figure outable,
Figure-outable, unfuckwithable. I like it.
You can't fuck with me.
Yes.
Like, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's untouchable.
Yeah.
I love
Have you had a
this.
moment in your life where you've been like, this is who I am. I feel so aware of myself.
Yeah, as I'm searching, I'm going to say something else because
Okay.
I thought another interesting point that was brought up is this isn't new. This has actually been happening for a long time. Another, like you said, with the RFK reference about the pesticides, but it has me thinking like how many people, even outside of gender, like aren't themselves. Like they never even think to tune in even, but they know something's off, but they never find that or search for that. That's why I just love you telling that story of that moment, like where you just like, it just fit, And I just thought that was really, I think me definitely in terms of artistry, like just.
I was going to ask you that, like, when you went, this is who I am as an artist. I'm all these things. I am multi hyphenates. I'm all the things. I am a podcaster. I'm an actor. I'm a musician. I'm a, and I'm basketball player. I'm a,
Yeah, not comparing this to gender at all, but there are some similarities in the art. I mean, you guys know, everyone here's an artist. It's not the societal path or not the traditional way to go. And there's a lot of people telling you, like, why would you do that? You're not going to make any money doing that. You need to go do this. This is the safe thing. This is a secure thing. People in LA, they're weird. You don't want to be a part of, and
perfect. That's exactly where I want to be.
That's why I love LA. Because someone said there's a lot of us in our hometowns, like we're kind of the ones that stick out, but we come here, it's like, hey, everyone's like
a little weird.
Yeah. So I'm trying to relate in my own way, like
absolutely,
like taking those steps of, there's people close to me. This may not have been the path they wanted to see me go. But I love what you said too about that love, though. That's why that love's so important, because you're exactly correct. Even though you can make the decision to go and I'm going to be this, it's still people that you love and are close to you. It's still not going to feel good.
Yeah,
absolutely. So I know where you're coming from on that.
Yeah, if you have anybody that has doubt, or not just doubt, but that You know what? I have a friend when I came out to him as trans, and I was in my first 2 years of comedy. And before I came out on stage as trans, I just would come out as queer and masculine, and I presented as female on stage. And then I started my transition, and I had this friend, this New York guy, Long Island. He lived in Maine. He was a new comic. He was a wordsmith. He's a very funny guy named Tom Ryan, and married. I had 3 girls, 2 girls, something like that. And I remember him, coming up to me. He's like, and I loved him so much. And he was like, brotherly to me. And he goes, hey, like, I was telling him how I felt. And he was like, hey, you know what? It was like, I just love you, like whatever you feel, like, I love you. I want that for you. I want that for you. Hey, if you change your mind, that's what I want for you. You know what? You change your mind again, then that's what I want for you. If it happens again, whatever you want, that's what I want for you. And I think that is the best representation of what we're supposed to be for each other. Is whatever you tell me today, it's like, I'm going to be the most excited about that thing for you, whatever that is, whether it's about your identity or a new project or a new love, relationship, passion, whatever it is. Like, you know what? I love that for you. That saying, I love that for you, is exactly that. And it's like, and mean it. And you know what? And if you know what, you pivot and want to do something else, then I love that for you. Oh my God. Like, I love that for you. That is amazing. That's our job as loving, supportive humans in each other's lives. And I just thought that's the perfect. Now, if we don't have that voice, to some extent, from all of our closest loved ones, like, you know what, like, we can kind of discern who is maybe a little nervous for us, like, ooh, like, I do want that for you, but I'm a little scared, that's different than like, you'll never make it.
Right.
Like, why are you even bothering with that bullshit? Like, you don't have to, it's like, it's such a different thing, like that. It's going to be a wound that you carry for a long time, that you're constantly tending to. And so just we all should just be that, like, loving force of, like, you know what, like, be the greatest fucking podcaster in the world, be the greatest producer, actor, writer, whatever it is, like, whatever you want to do, trendy man, like, whatever you want to build catios, fucking do it. I fucking love you. Build catios, for God's sake, whatever that is. And I think that's what we're supposed to be for each other. I don't think there's anything else. There's nothing else.
What do the kids do these days? They snap whenever.
Yeah. Agreed.
Eric, you got anything over there?
Yeah, let me turn my camera on. I keep going back to your question you asked her earlier about how did you know when you were ready with your script? And I was thinking about something that I wrote and produced, and my answer to that was, once I got positive feedback from other people, like once I got enough, which is kind of a theme for me. So it kind of is a microcosm for everything. It's just like, whether you get it early on from your parents and your loved ones, like feeling that support, that validation, until you get to the point where you can just give it to yourself. And it's like, so, and just the empowerment you have when you finally have it for yourself. But until, someone has that, they are so dependent on it from their loved ones and stuff.
Absolutely.
So I think that's kind of like this human thing that we've just been talking about in like very broad stroke there, that anyone can relate to. So yeah, that was
I love that.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. Yeah.
Love it.
This has been an incredible conversation. I know we've totally I don't even know what time it is.
I've lost track. I'm having fun, so whatever.
No, this has been a beautiful conversation.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you guys wanted to say, whether it's about the film, anything else you guys got going on? Because you guys are both two multi-talented people that do a lot of stuff. So
that's very sweet of you to ask. I guess we didn't really get to touch, I didn't mention this, so that's on me. But Frosting, the script, was inspired by a trans youth that came out in my life.
Yeah, tell us the backstory of like what.
I don't need to go super in detail about it. But I will say, based on some of the conversations we've had, it was a long process. And not being the parent, right, I have no say over any medical care, nor their education or extracurriculars. Like, I'm really just a supportive extra adult in this situation. But that was very much the inspiration for the script. And I feel very lucky that they're in my life, because they're just such a fantastic person. And I think that the obsession of generalizing trans people is just so odd because individuals are so much more interesting than that. You know, like, okay, you're trans also. You make catios and you are
That
on
is
Curb
for
Your
real.
Do you really make
Enthusiasm.
catios?
I mean, that wasn't out of
He
thin
does,
air.
he does.
I see those on TikTok. Those are
They're
pretty
so
cool.
cute. It's so cute. So just again, circling back, I guess, to the value of accepting people as the individual that they are and not just clumping people together is so important.
You know, I've said this, but also Alok said it so much better. There is many ways to be a man as there are stars in the sky. There is many ways to be a woman as there are stars in the skies, or to be non-binary, trans, so on. And so I've said this, like, I have met trans guys who have not done any sort of medical transition whatsoever, but fully identify as a man. I respect them. I believe them. Which is something that's in the script. One of the most important things you can do for a trans non-binary person is listen to them and believe them. Just believe me. When I tell you who I am, just believe me. That's all I need. And so I have met guys that do not need medical transition, don't need top surgery or hormones like I felt like I needed, and that there are so many variations of us. And it's what's interesting too, variations of orientation after that. You know, not just about our identity, but we date everybody. You know, we have sex with everybody. We are attracted to lots of different people, and
Or none at all.
or none at all. And you know, I know trans guys who are with other trans guys, and I know trans guys who are with gay men. Cis gay men. There's so many. So I just want to say back to the star thing. You know, that there are so many millions of ways to be, and like, allow yourself to be undone, to imagine all of the different ways that not just we could be, but also that you might be. And so that's something that, just, I
I
don't know.
love that.
Yeah. Anyway.
No, that's the thing that's so great about you, Ian, is that you are just so pro every single individual person being themselves.
Yeah.
In whatever
absolutely.
way they want to
Yeah.
be. And it's great.
Yeah.
Because we're going to have a better society, I believe, if you know what I mean? If people are living their truth, their most authentic self, you're going to have happier people. You're going to, it's good for everybody, right?
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
100%. Agreed.
Yeah, I agree. And we have to kind of put earmuffs on to the people who want to deny us or divide us. And that it's important to pay attention to the news, but to discern what is utter bullshit and what's trying to divide us, and to not let ourselves become weapons in that fight, but to become actual allies to each other and allow ourselves to be ourselves, and that not let any of those divisive narratives like keep us apart.
Yeah. So this other meme I saw.
Listen, I'm a meme. I love a good meme.
I love a good meme.
I do.
But all of the hate you've ever learned has been sold to you, whereas love just comes naturally. And I think
so true.
Yeah.
That's a
I
good
love
one.
it.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Say it again so I can repeat it. It's so good.
All right, now I'm nervous. All of the hate you've ever learned has been sold to you. All the love just comes naturally.
And free.
And free.
Yeah.
And free. Yes,
Yeah.
and free.
We're going to change that meme to
We're
and
going to
free.
figure it out. We'll rewrite
It's true. Yeah. And the key word being learned.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so good. I like that. I like a good meme.
I gotta say.
Memes bring people together.
In a big way.
We all have those friends on Instagram where we don't even
Or
talk.
the absolute opposite. Yeah. And you either commune or you divide. It's one or the other. Yeah.
I'm just real quick about, so I see these catios on Instagram, and some people go like all out. I didn't even know catios was a thing, but then some people have built like complete like fortress catios that their cats will roam for.
Go to Margaret Cho's TikTok if you can.
Okay.
And I think her catio's on there. It was also on MTV Cribs.
I love that. That's hilarious.
And they really did a focus on her. So if you walk out into her backyard, there's a bridge to her backyard, and underneath on either side of the bridge, there was this no man's land. And so there's a catio here, there's a tunnel underneath, and then it comes up and then comes out of her back French doors. I built a tunnel out of that so you can go into that one, down into this one. But then I built 100 long foot tunnel to go to the other side of her property with 3 tiers of catio on the other side. And each space she can go in and hang out with them. There's like couches and stuff inside so she can hang out with them. So
those cats are living their best life.
Yeah, absolutely. She has 3 cats, only 3, but they have the life of Riley. So yeah.
So sure. Are you for hire for catios?
Yeah, I mean, I do it for friends. I do it for I built a bunch of them. I love doing it, and it's a really fun thing to figure out. It's like I do improv building on people's property like that because I had to figure out the land, and it wasn't like I could draw plans exactly because we only did the first 2 at first. And then she was like, I think I want some on the other side. I'm like, shit, how am I going to get over there? So I had to
MacGyver.
Yeah, I had to MacGyver that stuff. So anyway, yeah. But you can see it on there. But anyway, I you know what I want to do? I want to go back to the film for 1 second because when and I don't know if this is the wrap up or not. It doesn't have to be, but I just want to say that I'm so crazy proud of Rose. She wrote, she produced, and starred in this film. And it is in now 8 festivals.
Yeah, I think 10 now.
10? Okay, 10 festivals. And the response at the Nevada one, is it Nevada or Nevada?
Whatever you want.
I
mean, I say Nevada.
Tomato.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I know some people have strong feelings.
Okay.
Yeah, whatever.
And the response, and to be in the audience, I got to go and sit with Rose and squoze her arm really hard at one point. There's some such great moments in the film. Their performances are excellent, and it will move you. Like, you can't help but be moved. And I just am so proud of what you did and what you created and how many places and people are seeing it. And what did you say to me? You were like, it's really weird. When I wrote this, I thought it was probably like going to be like, we're going to have a different president. It wasn't going to be that important of a film. And now it's like so important. This film is like right on time, unfortunately.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. I had talked to a friend and I was like, I hope maybe one day frosting will almost be a little bit dated. Like, we don't need to talk about this because trans people are just accepted in society and it's like not a big thing. But
here we are.
Yeah. But then the November 2024 came around, and it's as important as ever, as people say. So I am glad it's here at the right time, and I hope that people see it and just, I don't know, appreciate it and maybe think about things a little bit differently.
Where's it going next? Because I know not this weekend, but the following is Phoenix.
Yes. So
where's it been? What has it won?
Oh my God. I'm kidding. Ian.
Come on.
Oh my God. Well, it played at the Damn Short. It got Best Short at the Amsterdam
New Cinema Film
Festival. Will be at the Phoenix Film Festival, and then we have honestly like 40 other festivals we're getting answers from. So it'll be making its rounds across the US and abroad. And in terms of distribution, have not quite decided that yet.
Yeah, that was my next question. After it makes the festival circuit, where will people be able to? But eventually, probably there'll be some plan where people can see
I appreciate you thinking of that and asking that. Yeah, I'm kind of up in the air. I potentially going to throw it on YouTube because like I would love to just have as many people see it as possible. At the same time, as a producer, I am figuring out the post-production elements, and distribution is part of that. It is a short, right? So something like Tubi would be a more realistic space than like Netflix or something, potentially Amazon.
What's their DEI policy, Tubi?
We're gonna have to look into it. We're gonna have to see where we want, who we want to do business with.
Yeah.
Yep. It's so true. So true. But I'm gonna just pitch this to you right here.
Yeah.
Live pitch
Here
on the podcast.
We're gonna time capsule this right here.
Yeah.
If you might be interested in doing a writer-director commentary, and then just watching the film together, basically doing commentary on it, and then making it like a 45-minute package.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's
Yeah,
great. So
let's
that
just
might
do it.
be
Yeah.
See?
We're going to do it here in this living room, and we're going to ask these guys to produce it. Yeah.
perfect.
It's going to be like Mystery Science Theater 3000. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's
I
like,
don't.
It was like these silhouettes of characters
yeah,
watching
yes.
a movie and like
I do
sort
know
of
what you're
cracking
talking
jokes.
about. Yeah,
anyway.
yeah.
Anyway.
Did they make up voices?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty popular. I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
For sure.
It was. Yeah, I'm in.
Okay,
We'll do
great.
it. Yeah.
Amazing. I mean, I will. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Okay, just though, as a producer, I feel an obligation to impart this information to all of the viewers. It is more likely to get picked up as a 40 to 60 minute piece than as the 15-minute piece that it is. So that is why I was asking Ian about that, because I'm considering like fleshing it out with this commentary and then potentially like behind the scenes video and pictures and stuff.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So you could show the film, but within it, you guys could even be like talking to each other with 2 mics or however. Like,
Yeah,
that
or
would
like
be pretty dope.
show the film, and then the second half would be like a making of or behind the scenes / commentary. Because we have behind the scenes content, but we did not shoot planning on making a behind the scenes documentary, right? So that's why I'm thinking the commentary might be a good workaround.
We got some behind the scenes stuff going on right now. Just
Right now.
pull some clips. Yeah.
Sam Dever podcast. This is the place to be.
And I wanted to ask you both before we get to the end here. What is the number one thing that you learned from that frosting, from that project?
Man, number one thing.
And from a filmmaker's point of view, filmmaker, producer, whatever hat you want to choose.
All right. Well, to be honest, this is not really like a sexy takeaway. But as a filmmaker, we were shooting and we kept getting glare on glass in the back of one of the shots.
Yep.
And we were trying to figure it out. We did like the gaff tape ball in the back to try to tilt it. We were still having problems. We talked it out, and I was just like, I'm going to bring out some hairspray and we're going to spray it. And by spraying it, it made the glass more matte. So we didn't have a glare of the light or the reflection of the camera in it. So that's a very practical thing. But I will say, like, in the moment, I was so freaking proud of myself because, like, those
MacGyvering it.
The MacGyvering. It was the MacGyvering. Yeah. So, and that is like, in terms of an indie filmmaker takeaway, I think that there will be people out there who will appreciate that.
Yeah, that's a good one. Oof. I think for me, the preparation of reading the script over and over and over again, that repetition, I found something new every time. I understood something new about each character or a word each time. And so I can't stress to myself enough that, you know, what's really weird is that I've done this in auditions too, where I practiced, I've rehearsed, and I've, learned the lines, and I go through it and I'm like so prepared, and I go in, and then after I do my couple takes and I walk away, or if it's a self-tape and I send it off and it's locked in, I go, shit, that's what that meant. And I've thought of a new meaning in something. So for me, reading this over and over, listening to it over and over, and actually listening to it with a particular, even if it's like copying the entire script, putting it on my iPhone and having Siri read it to me, doesn't matter. I hear something new in it every time. So I think as a director, it is my job, even if it may not be what Rose fully intended in what she wrote, like, I want an interpretation of what that meant. And I don't know if for you, if I picked up on something that you didn't realize, like that you were like, oh shit, I didn't even realize when I wrote that also could mean that. So I think that, that repetition, it's kind of like rehearsal. It's like for play practice, you go over and over and over it, and then you discover something new.
Tell them what Jay told you too, because I feel like that's a good takeaway for new directors.
The one where he was
like reshoot.
Oh yeah, absolutely. From a technical perspective, as a new director, like he just said, look. So I called my friend Jay Duplass. He was on Transparent with me. We didn't have we had one scene together, but wasn't interacting. But he is just such a lovely human. And I called him and said, I have this gig. I'm terrified in a good way. I'm doing it. What do I need to know? And he said, you're going to be so excited to shoot your first scene and your first take. He's like, go back and shoot it again because you have no real accurate lens on whether it was good or not because you're going to be too excited. So go back and shoot it again. We did. We shot it several times, but it was a smart move because, you're just like, making a movie with you guys.
Yeah.
It's great. And like, awesome. That was great. Everybody great. No, moving on. No. Go back and shoot it again. That was a great tip. The other thing he said to me was, just watch and listen and imagine yourself in a theater watching this movie, and does this feel like a movie to you? And it's so simple, it's so simple. Like, does this feel real to you? And, I don't know. I just thought those two things were really great for me to hear. And again, Rose gave me so much awesome information and believed in me. But, all of these things culminated into whatever sort of fake confidence I had on that day, those days that we shot.
It was earned.
But
I hope it was real confidence because you fooled me if it wasn't.
You know what it's like? It's like, it's like I'm right before I walk on stage to do a set of comedy, I want to literally crap my pants every time. I've been doing this 22 years and I literally could go to the bathroom any second right before I go on. But the moment I'm on stage, I'm in command and I'm okay. I'm like, this is my world. I make it my world, and I'm going to be okay, and you're going to be okay. So that I think that I did kind of step into that moment of like, okay, I got to make this okay for everybody, especially myself, but for everybody else. Everybody belongs here. We're all loved. We're all meant to be here. We're supposed to be doing this together. We're going to be fine. And just that sort of sentiment. But anyway, that's
it's
a
just
lot
so
of things.
vulnerable for actors, this, to be on screen, being recorded. And Imani Pearl Williams, Caden Kearney were just excellent when we were able to cast them. Like both of them, like we saw our self tapes and we're like, those are the best.
Yeah,
please,
absolutely.
I hope they say yes. So I think I could tell that they felt comfortable with you as a director, and just generally the mood of the space. I felt like everyone kind of felt confident in what they were bringing to the set, and like, you're just such a fun, like, cheerful person.
I just immediately admitted vulnerability. Like, look.
And that's my favorite thing directors do. I would say, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, yeah, please.
I did this, I attended this, I audited an acting class, and they film during the class. And a big green flag for me was that the teacher was like, he's directed about other films and stuff, and he was like, try this. I don't know if it's going to work, but try it. And I love a director who will just be like, yes, we're just playing. We're just trying things. And isn't like, I know that this is what's going to work. It's like, no one knows. Don't pretend.
Yeah. That, to some extent, I do believe that no one out here really knows what they're doing. Other than like a timesheet and maybe a call sheet, like, everything creative is really kind of on the fly. Like, this conversation is improv. We don't know what we're about to say or how it's going to go. And so I think that's really the entire process out here, and what draws us to it, is that we're on the edge always, constantly. And that vulnerable place of being on the edge, and that we can all, like, I think the first thing I said was like, look, I've never done this before, and I appreciate, please tell me. Like, I don't know anything. In fact, not that I don't know everything, I know nothing. So please, clue me in if I need to be. So like, I think that like when we get to that place with each other, it becomes a much comfortable, safer place to like open up and play. And I didn't make these guys do. I make you, but like I was like, I had this I was in a acting class that we did these exercises where you had to get super body to body close with somebody, and it was always like a little like, ooh, at first, but then it became kind of hilarious, and then it became tender, and then it became sad, and it became a bunch of things. But one of the things I wanted you and Imani to experience was a closeness as a couple, and you and Jay, Holly and Jay as cousins and family, and to like, to all of you to have a connection. So I asked them to beforehand and very quickly in sort of like a 15-minute session to become intimate and like be sort of body to body, like connected, like as close as you can comfortably be, and share something that the other person wouldn't know about yourself. I can't remember exactly what I said, but like share something that was about you that happened this week or whatever, where you're at. And everybody came out, and it was very, I mean, I don't think you knew anybody before that. And they didn't know you. And everybody came out, and it was just like, oh, these people are in love, So like that kind of, I think when we all said, when I said, I don't know what I'm doing, but let's try this. And you all were agreeable, and everybody got vulnerable. And I don't know, there's something about it that was really special, and everybody came out and very present. Anyway.
I will say off of that, it was a little hard for me to be a producer and an actor, in that all of the Me Too, not all of it, but a lot of it is corrupt producers taking advantage of actors, right? And I was like, I'm a producer. I'm working with the actors. I'm going to be close to the actors. I don't know if I should, because I don't want to be, inappropriate. But obviously I had to kind of like relax a little. And
remember that you're not a cis male.
And that helps. That does help.
Yeah.
You fostered a very like workable space for me to chill out a little bit. And it reminded me, I was, traveling with a friend once, and I forget what we were doing, but it was like nighttime. And I was like, I just don't want to like creep anyone out. And she was just like, to be creepy really depends on your threat level. And the two of us are not threatening. She's shorter than me, just like the two of us bopping around. And I was like, yes. So then there was some compartmentalizing though between the producer and actor brain.
I've never thought of that. For creepiness, the threat level.
Right? Like if you're not scaring me, I'm not going to be creeped out.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, it's a beautiful film.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to our top 10 takeaways.
Yeah.
No.
What's your top takeaway? And we're like, and.
Well, because the film really, we'd start with that, and then it branched out. I love how we don't plan this either. We come with a base, and then we just flow.
Yeah.
So this has been a phenomenal conversation, to say the least. And we'll do our final words and all that. Eric, do you have anything before we head out?
Thank you,
guys.
Eric.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Truly.
Thank you.
Also, like, you kind of nailed it though, in what you did say. I feel like that rap like kind of contains the multitudes of what we discussed. So appreciate that.
Loved it.
Yeah, no, it was great. And it's a beautiful film. And again, I don't know if I said this while we were recording, but just the technical aspects too, the shots, obviously the acting, the directing, everything, the concept, you guys nailed it. So I'm excited to see where this film goes, and keep us in the loop,
Thank you.
Yeah.
It
sounds like you got a lot more festivals to hit.
Well, we're working our way through them. Yep. So it's kind of it's a surprise. It's a little bit of a mixed bag, finding out if they're accepted or not. And then the coordinating of like, if you find out the month before, can you travel across the country to get to it or not? It's a process, but regardless, it's always an honor to get accepted to the festival. And whether I'm able to attend or not, it means a lot that people are able to see it.
All right. Well, before I give you both your final word, where can people find you guys online and look you up, stalk you, find your projects?
Not creepy. No creepy stalking. Thank you. You can find me on Instagram, @RoseDonahue_. And that is the primary spot for me these days.
Okay.
You'll find updates on there. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. All the frosting updates are on there. And for me, you can go to my website, ianharvie.com, Harvie spelled HARVIE, or you can go to my Instagram, which is the same name. There's a lot of horses pictures on there of me hanging out at the ranch, my friend's nonprofit sanctuary, or pugs.
Yeah.
There's catios. There's some showbiz stuff. But a lot of it's just life stuff. But I always share whatever Rose has to share about the film for sure. So you can find out on both our accounts.
Cool. Well, thank you both so much for coming on. This is a treasure of a conversation. It was great energy. Great. This is so fluid, and Eric and I, every conversation is great, but there's certain ones that just flow, and this was one of them. It was just like
good.
We're just passing the ball around, So this was great. Congrats on the film. Best of luck with that moving forward. And I always give the guests the last word. You guys have already given us so much. How would you both like to end this podcast? Parting comments.
Thank you for facilitating a lovely conversation.
Of course, you're welcome.
I think I've said enough.
You said so many good things, though.
I said too much. I was such a blabbermouth. So I'm going to just be done and say thank you.
We've got a lot of clips in this conversation.
Thank you.
Rose, Ian, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching the Sam Dever podcast. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@thesamdeverpodcast, and give us a follow on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. See you soon.